Chapter 626. Oh. The staff member was stunned and looked at Xiaoqin strangely. You're a martial master? Why don't you go directly to the martial arts guild at the entrance of the Hakanamata Desert? What are you doing here? We don't do martial master level missions here. I'm from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. My mission should be from here. Xiaoqin explained. Oh, you're from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Why didn't you say so earlier? After this person heard it, he said somewhat impatiently, All right, I'll give you a transfer request. You can go directly to the Wulian Martial Guild to complete the procedures. The Martial Master level missions are all issued by the Wulian Martial Guild. We are the secular world's martial guild. All right, thank you. Xiaoqin roughly understood. The Martial Arts Guild was divided into the Secular Martial Arts Guild and the Martial Arts Guild. Usually, the Martial Arts Guild referred to was in the secular world. Only in the martial arts world would there be a martial arts guild. This mission is issued by the Secular Martial Arts Guild headquarters. We won't issue it here. If you come to me, we'll transfer it for you. The staff member finished the procedures and passed the transfer form to Xiaoqin. Although the staff member's attitude wasn't very good, Xiaoqin didn't say anything. There probably weren't many people here all year round. Furthermore, it was close to the martial arts world. The Martial Arts Guild in the secular world didn't have much effect at all. It was normal for the staff here to be in a bad mood. Xiaoqin got the transfer form and went to the Hakanamata Desert Martial Arts Guild according to the map at the back. However, it was barren land in front of him. There weren't any long-distance buses. If he walked there, it would indeed be a little strenuous. Xiaoqin had no choice but to turn back and ask, Excuse me, is there a car delivery service here? No, there's a car rental. It's 10,000 a day. The staff member said impatiently. Then give me one. Xiaoqin was a little speechless. What kind of price was that? It couldn't be a Rolls-Royce, right? A deposit of 1 million. The staff member said. Okay. Xiaoqin could only agree. After swiping the card, the staff brought Xiaoqin to pick up the car. When Xiaoqin saw the car, he was even more speechless. This was a 2020 Jeep that could only be seen in driving schools. This kind of car actually cost 10,000 yuan a day and a deposit of 1 million yuan. The rarer something is, the more expensive it is. However, Xiaoqin did not dwell on this. He just drove away. If he had to run around in the desert for a few days, Xiaoqin would go crazy. Along the way, Xiaoqin followed the directions of the map and the car's navigation system. He came to the front of a building. This building was a bit like an old castle, but when he got closer he could see a few big words written on the top of the building. Hakuna Mata Desert Warrior Guild / Hakuna Mata Desert Teleportation Array Entrance. Xiaoqin parked the car in front of the building and got out. This place was not as deserted as the U-Town Warrior Guild. There were many cars parked here, but Xiaoqin's car was the most broken. These people obviously came directly from nearby. They were not like Xiaoqin, who came back for the first time and rented a car from U-Town. However, no one paid attention to Xiaoqin's car. At this level of martial cultivation, they were all martial masters. They would not compete with each other so superficially to show off their wealth. In their eyes, the car was just a tool. Even if it was a bicycle, it was good if it was fast. They competed in strength and other aspects. Even if they laughed at others, they would not laugh at others' cars. In fact, no one even looked at Xiaoqin. When Xiaoqin walked in, he saw a scene as lively as the Lan City and Songning Warrior Guild. On the big screen there were all kinds of missions. It seemed that there were not only Hakuna Mata Desert exploration missions, but also some other missions. Xiaoqin did not need to go near. From afar he could see that there were all kinds of missions, but most of them were related to the desert and its surroundings. There were missions about the Paoli clan, Blazing Mountain, a river in the desert called Green Blood River, and Wainer Valley. There were missions about gathering herbs, hunting spirit beasts, looking for treasures, and so on. Xiaoqin was basically not interested in them. He took the transfer book and went straight to the staff here. The staff here was obviously more enthusiastic, comparable to the ones in Lan City and Songning. Hello, sir. How can I help you? The staff asked politely. I transferred here from the Yu Family Town's Warriors Guild. I'm here to do the mission of searching for spirit stones in the ruins of the Bali clan's cultivation city in the Hakanamata Desert. Xiaoqin explained as he handed over the transfer book. Oh, so it's a young hero from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. Please come with me. The staff looked at it and nodded. He brought Xiaoqin to an office next door and said, The mission points are relatively high, but the spirit stones are also valuable. Please pay a deposit of 100 million. If you collect more than 10 spirit stones, you can return the deposit without changing it. If there is one less, 10 million will be deducted. Is that acceptable? Oh, I still need to pay such a high deposit? Xiao Qin was stunned. He was a little shocked. Although he had some money, he didn't have 100 million. Moreover, 10 spirit stones. To put it bluntly, it would be good if he could find even one. Yes. In order to prevent people from not handing in the spirit stones they find and keeping them for themselves, this rule was made. Of course, this is a mutual agreement. You can also disagree and you don't need to do this mission, the staff explained. Xiao Qin was a little speechless. The mission points were indeed very high, but at the same time if he couldn't complete it he might lose a lot of money. Could it be that these martial artists are also rich? Wait a minute. I'll make a call. Xiao Qin had no choice but to walk out of the warrior guild and call Xia Zhili. Jianan, how is it? Have you arrived? Xia Zhili said on the other side of the phone. I've arrived, but I've encountered some trouble. Xiao Qin said and told Xia Zhili about the deposit. Oh, there's actually a deposit of 100 million? Xia Zhili was also very surprised after listening. Jianan, I can't come up with this money in a short time. It's impossible for the Supernatural Investigation Bureau to come up with it because you can't guarantee that you will find the spirit stones. If you can't find it and lose the money, it will be very disadvantageous for you and me. Song Billion may take this opportunity to get mad and drive us out. I understand. I'll think of a way myself. When Xiao Qin heard Xia Zhili's tone, he knew that there was no way. The Supernatural Investigation Bureau would not come up with this money. I personally have 30 million savings. I can let you use it first, Xia Zhili said. As for the rest, there's no other way. Okay, if I need anything, I'll call you again. Xiao Qin was stunned. He didn't expect Xia Zhili to be so generous. He actually took out his own money. However, Xia Zhili only saved 30 million, which surprised Xiao Qin. He thought that this old man was rich. One had to know that the Supernatural Investigation Bureau's bonus was very high, especially for people like him who were injured before. The compensation they received was also very high. However, thinking about it, most of the money was probably used to buy medicinal herbs for cultivation. Xiao Qin thought about it. Who do I have to ask for money from? Little Hongzhu was rich, but he couldn't contact her at the moment. After thinking for a long time, Xiao Qin directly called Qing Zhongfan. After thinking about it, he could only blackmail him. Although the Xiao family could take out the money now, it was Xiao Chen's own money. He couldn't bear to part with it. However, this Qing Zhongfan was quite rich. Who is it? Qing Zhongfan picked up the phone. When he saw this unfamiliar number, he was a little inexplicable. Mr. Qing Zhongfan, hello. I'm Hero White Fox, Xiao Qin said with a smile. What? Qing Zhongfan was stunned. Xiao Qin? Why are you calling me? Oh, I haven't burned your house recently, so my hands are a little itchy. I wonder how Qing Mingqiang is doing? Has he recovered? Do you still want to taste the taste of barbecue? Xiao Qin asked with a smile. Xiao Qin, what do you mean? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't say those useless things. Are you trying to scare me? Qing Zhongfan was furious. Last time, you told the Supernatural Investigation Bureau that I was in Songning, right? Are you planning to catch me? Don't say no. Only your family knows my whereabouts, Xiao Qin said coldly. It really wasn't that time. It was Chao Yuliang who kept it a secret. Qing Zhongfan explained patiently. He had to explain. Xiao Qin was too ruthless and would burn people at the slightest provocation. He didn't have any good countermeasures. He wasn't Taoist Lu Li who could get some fire-resistant clothes with a raise. When facing Xiao Qin he could only be burned. He was too weak to extinguish the fire. Isn't Chao Yuliang your son's subordinate? Do you think I don't know? Xiao Qin asked. This. Qing Zhongfan felt wronged in his heart. It was true that he was Chao Yuliang's subordinate, but it wasn't Qing Mingqiang who asked him to report. However, even if he said this, Xiao Qin probably wouldn't believe it. He had to say, well, we were wrong, but you are fine now, aren't you? I'm fine, but I'm in urgent need of money now. Give me some. Xiao Qin said his purpose. Give me money? How much? Qing Zhongfan knew that Xiao Qin had something to do. Otherwise he wouldn't have said so much before. After the threat was over, the real business came. However, it was also a good choice to spend money to avoid disaster. After all, he couldn't compete with Xiao Qin. If Xiao Qin wanted to secretly mess with him, he couldn't guard against it. 100 million yuan. I'll give you an account. You transfer it to me. Xiao Qin didn't wait for Qing Zhongfan to bargain and said directly, okay, I'm waiting. If I don't get the money in half an hour, I will burn your house. You know me. After that, he hung up the phone. F***CK. Cheng Zhongfan was furious and almost threw the phone. 100 million yuan? Do you think the Cheng family is a bank? Can you take it out just like that? I can really take it out, but that's my private money. Chapter 627. But to be honest, he didn't dare to tell this to his father, Cheng Tianxiu. If he told him, then his identity and plan would be exposed. Cheng Zhongfan was so angry that he ran directly to Cheng Mingxiang's room and roared, "It's all your fault. I knew that Xiao Chen wouldn't let us go so easily. That kid has endured for many years. How can he be easily dismissed with this kind of temperament? Sure enough, something happened, right? Dad, what's wrong? Xiao Chen is here again? Is he going to burn our house?" Cheng Mingxiang had been traumatized by Xiao Chen. His injuries hadn't healed yet. He was so scared that he jumped up from the bed. "He hasn't come yet, but he asked me for 100 million. If I don't give it to him, he said he's coming." Cheng Zhongfan glanced at his son and was very disdainful of his cowardly behavior. However, wasn't he the same when he thought about it? He was angry in his heart. "This little bastard, if we were in the sect, I would have killed him long ago. In the secular world, he still dares to shit on my head. What should we do? Do we give it to him?" Cheng Mingxiang was a little worried. He still remembered the pain of being burned. "I don't want to give it, but can we not give it?" Cheng Zhongfan's voice changed. "That guy is hiding in the dark now. He's a madman. He doesn't play by the rules at all. How about we threaten him with the Xiao family?" Cheng Mingxiang rolled his eyes and suggested. "Your suggestion can't be implemented at all. If we touch the Xiao family, he will definitely come back to destroy our Cheng family. At worst, we will die together. But we are porcelain. We can't touch him." Cheng Zhongfan shook his head. "Our Cheng family has been working hard for many years to become a true martial arts family. I will eventually return to the sect. The Cheng family still has to operate here unless you all give up and come with me." "This?" Cheng Mingxiang was a little hesitant. He really couldn't bear to leave the Cheng family. He heard that the sect was full of ascetics. There was no glory, splendor, and wealth. He was greedy for the secular world. "All right, I'm just complaining. Just pass it on to him." Cheng Zhongfan took a deep breath and waved his hand. "I'm going to transfer the money. You don't need to think about it." "Yes." Cheng Mingxiang heaved a sigh of relief. Spending money to avoid disaster was much better than provoking that lunatic Xiao Chen. Looking at the notification that his account had been transferred, Xiao Chen's lips curled into a smile. Then he turned around and returned to the martial artist attack. Using an anonymous method, he transferred the money to the Martial Artist Guild's account. "All right, since the deposit has been paid, you can head to the Hakuna Mata Desert now. This is your calling token. Remember, whenever you crush the token, you'll be teleported back to the entrance of the teleportation circle. Also, this is the map of the Paoli clan's cultivation city. You can follow the map when the time comes." When the staff saw that Xiao Chen had transferred the money, his attitude became better. He enthusiastically said, "But remember, don't stay in the desert for too long. Although we didn't set a limit for how long you can stay, I still have to remind you of some things in advance." "Please speak," Xiao Chen said with a solemn expression. "The desert is a place where it is easy to get lost. The same environment, the same scenery, the sudden appearance of mirages, and the endless heat will make people lose their minds. If you really get lost, then you will be lost forever. It will be very difficult to wake up." The staff looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Many people covet points. They keep searching in the desert and eventually get lost. There are many people like this. I hope you don't lose your heart." "Thank you, I understand." Xiao Chen nodded and noted it down. However, he was wondering if his father would get lost. But it shouldn't be. His entire team disappeared, not just one person. If one person got lost, then the others should still be there. How could all of them get lost? Xiao Chen shook his head and kept the jade token. Under the guidance of the staff, he arrived at the back of the warrior guild. At the back of the warrior guild, there was a place that looked like a shrine. However, upon closer inspection, it looked more like a strange mechanism. In the middle of the main hall, there was a high platform. Under the staff's direction, Xiao Chen went up the platform. "All right, stand still and don't move. The transmission array is about to be activated." The staff shouted and activated some unknown mechanism. Xiao Chen only saw a white light flash before his eyes. In the blink of an eye, he felt a burst of heat under his feet and a hot wind blew on his face. When he opened his eyes, he saw a barren desert with no end in sight. Xiao Chen knew that he was already inside the Hakanamata Desert. If it weren't for Xia Zhili saying that there might be extraterrestrial ink meteorites here, Xiao Chen wouldn't have come here. 100 million, what could he not do with this money? Moreover, his purpose here was to go to the Flame Mountain, not to the Bubbly clan. Fortunately, the desert was connected. He was only transmitted to the vicinity of the Bubbly clan's cultivation city ruins. As long as he didn't leave the desert, he should be able to reach the Flame Mountain. He didn't intend to go out immediately. Only God knows how much deposit was needed to go to the ancient ruins of the Flame Mountain. He would look for it himself. Of course, Xiaoqin didn't intend to wander around randomly. He didn't know whether this transmission array was a random transmission or a directional transmission. However, no matter what, he had to figure out his position. Xiaoqin took out the GPS and the map given to him by the staff and started comparing them. After looking for a long time, he discovered that his position was on the west side of the Bubbly clan's cultivation city ruins. Putting down the map, Xiaoqin looked around. How come there wasn't a single person here? It stood to reason that there should be a lot of people who would accept such a high reward mission, right? However, although there were some doubts in his heart, Xiaoqin still moved forward towards the destination indicated on the map. Looking at the desert under his feet and all around him, there was no end in sight. Xiaoqin suddenly felt a bit depressed. Looking for spirit stones in this kind of place, wasn't it more difficult than ascending to the heavens? Now he finally figured it out. No wonder the warrior guild had collected 100 million as a deposit in advance. It seemed that they had already planned to scam him. Only a fool like him would spend so much money. Moreover, he had seen a lot of desert-related missions on the big screen. He guessed that only this kind of unaccepted mission would be posted to the warrior guild headquarters in the secular world. Then Xia Zhili saw it and asked him to come over. Shaking his head, although that 100 million was not his own money, Xiaoqin still felt very distressed. He had been cheated. If he had known this would happen, he would have just applied for another mission and come over. However, not long after, Xiaoqin quickly became excited because he saw a shiny thing in the desert not far away. Although he did not know what it was, Xiaoqin quickened his pace and walked over. Just as he squatted down, he was stopped by the voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. "Don't move," said the Elder Heaven Ancestor. "Oh?" Xiaoqin was taken aback. "Elder Heaven Ancestor, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with it?" "What's wrong with it?" Elder Heaven Ancestor coldly snorted and said, "If I didn't say it, I'm afraid you would already be dead." "Dead?" Xiaoqin exclaimed in disbelief, his entire body shocked. "Do you know what it is?" Elder Heaven Ancestor asked. "It seems to be a spirit stone?" Although Xiaoqin had never seen a spirit stone before, this thing had a white luster and shined under the sunlight. Moreover, as he got closer, he could feel the faint fluctuation of spiritual energy. If this wasn't a spirit stone, then what was it? Xiaoqin did not think that he would be so lucky to see a spirit stone as soon as he came in. "You really don't know anything. You didn't do any homework before coming here," Elder Heaven Ancestor said coldly. "You watch from the side for a while, don't touch it. I won't say anything for now. Consider it a lesson for you, don't mess around in the future." Ah. Xiaoqin was a little confused, but he still followed the instructions of the Elder Heaven Ancestor and did not touch the spirit stone. Instead, he stood to the side and carefully looked at the spirit stone. However, there was nothing special about this spirit stone. It looked very attractive. However, just when Xiaoqin was bored to death, the spirit stone actually moved. Xiaoqin saw a row of legs and a long tail suddenly grow out of the spirit stone. Then, with a whooshing sound, it crawled forward. What is this thing? The spirit stone can run? Xiaoqin's eyes widened as he looked at this shocking scene. Now you know how powerful it is? Elder Heaven Ancestor's proud voice sounded. This is called the desert parasitic scorpion. It is highly toxic and relies on its bright appearance to confuse other creatures in the desert. Then it will deal a fatal blow. If you get stung by it and get poisoned, I think you will die soon. Xiaoqin looked at the crawling little thing with lingering fear. His heart was aghast, but when he saw the spirit stone, he was not willing to give up. Elder Heaven Ancestor, this thing, other martial cultivators naturally have no way of dealing with it. The desert parasitic scorpion lives in the hot desert and has the protection of the spirit stone. Its shell is hard and its life is hard. Most people have no way of dealing with it. Therefore, most people would not be fooled into touching this spirit stone because it is simply a joke. After finishing, the Elder Heaven Ancestor changed the topic. But the Samadhi true fire is enough to burn this little thing to death. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you scared me to death. Xiaoqin threw out the Samadhi true fire. In an instant, the desert parasitic scorpion was surrounded by the Samadhi true fire. After struggling for a bit, it turned into a wisp of green smoke. The stone also stopped moving. Other than a little black on the surface, it was completely unharmed. Xiaochen walked over and picked up the spirit stone. After wiping it clean, it was as good as new. Chapter 628. After discovering this benefit, as Xiaochen moved forward, he actually found a lot of desert hermit scorpions like this. They were all carrying a spirit stone on their backs as camouflage. This made Xiaochen very happy. He threw out the true samadhi fire again and again, turning those desert hermit scorpions into green smoke. The spirit stones were also collected by Xiaochen. In the blink of an eye, the 10 spirit stones task was easily completed. Being a cultivator is still the best. Xiaochen sighed. If he was a martial master, he would also be helpless. Even a devil master who could use fire-type martial skills would probably be helpless against this kind of thing. This was because, under Xiaochen's strongest true samadhi fire, the desert hermit scorpions would still struggle a few times before turning into ashes. After tasting the benefits, Xiaochen also began to feel happy. Along the way, not only did he complete the task, he also obtained a full 15 spirit stones. However, after obtaining these 15 spirit stones, Xiaochen did not gain anything else. He estimated that all the desert hermit scorpions in the vicinity had been burned by him. There were only 20 or so of them in the vicinity. Even if there were, he estimated that they would have to go far away to other places. Thinking of this, Xiaochen was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the desert. He was ready to use the extra 15 spirit stones to cultivate. Although the effect of these things was not as good as the spirit jades, their function should be similar. Otherwise, those people in the martial arts world would not be able to collect spirit jades and spirit stones. Xiaochen did not want to carry a large pile of stones forward. It was naturally good to be able to use some. He was now a chi refinement stage cultivator. He did not know whether the outer inky meteorite would be useful for him to break through to the foundation building stage, but these spirit stones were definitely useful. Taking out a spirit stone and holding it in his hand, Xiaochen began to circulate the Heart Sutra. Rich spiritual qi poured into Xiaochen's body and turned into primordial qi. However, the speed was not as fast as the spirit jades. It could only be regarded as a barely sufficient supply, but there was no surplus. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaochen did not feel anything, but the spirit stone in his hand shattered with a kacha sound. So fast. Xiaochen looked at the broken pieces in his hand and shook his head. This thing was used up too quickly. It wasn't even 1/10 of the effect of the spiritual jade. However, Xiaochen didn't care and casually threw it to the side. In any case, this thing was free. He took out another spirit stone and continued cultivating. Time passed by in a flash. Xiaochen didn't know how much time had passed. When he reached into his bag, he discovered that it was empty. It turned out that even the 10 spirit stones left behind for the mission had been taken away by Xiaochen. The consumption of these things was really huge. Unknowingly, they were all used up. This made Xiaochen a little depressed. So many spiritual stones, but it still wasn't enough for him to advance to the peak of the 10th level of Qi refinement realm. With a sigh, Xiaochen stood up and found that it was already the morning of the next day. He cultivated overnight and wasted 25 spiritual stones. If it was converted into the equivalent of credit points, it would be worth 250 million. However, Xiaochen didn't regret it. He would rather not have that 100 million. It was worth it for him to cultivate. He quickly moved forward. Just as he guessed, there were no more desert hermit scorpions in this area. Therefore, Xiaochen quickened his pace and continued to move forward. Finally, he saw the vague shadow of an ancient castle in front of him. According to the map, this should be the ruins of the Paoli clan's cultivation city. Next, Xiaochen didn't disappoint. He once again saw the desert hermit scorpions camouflaged under the spiritual stones. There were a lot of desert hermit scorpions here. Xiaochen was very happy. He began to burn them like crazy. Then he collected all the spiritual stones. After circling around the castle, Xiaochen collected 54 spiritual stones. This made him very happy. It seems like these spiritual stones must have been under the desert before. After they were discovered by the desert hermit scorpions, they came out to deceive people. If Xiaochen were to search aimlessly in the desert, he would definitely die of exhaustion. It was no wonder that no one accepted this quest. This was a scam. Xiaochen didn't believe that there would be any spiritual stones in the ruins of the Paoli clan's cultivation city. He reckoned that the spiritual stones on the surface had already been found. Therefore, it wouldn't be Xiaochen's turn to study the desert hermit scorpions. After looking around for a while, Xiaochen determined that there wouldn't be any desert hermit scorpions in the vicinity for a while. Then he found a place to sit down and continue cultivating. Of course, if he went in another direction he would definitely encounter some desert hermit scorpions. However, Xiaoqin already had more than 50 spiritual stones on his back. He didn't want to go too far. In any case, he would just look for more spiritual stones when he ran out. This time, Xiaoqin placed 10 spiritual stones on one side of his backpack and the rest on the other side. Then he began to cultivate. Time passed unconsciously as Xiaoqin cultivated. When there were only 3 spiritual stones left beside Xiaoqin's hand, Xiaoqin touched the barrier of the peak of the 10th layer of qi refining that he hadn't felt in a long time. Sure enough, it was useful. Xiaoqin clenched his teeth and began to speed up his cultivation. The last 3 spiritual stones turned into powder in Xiaoqin's hand. However, Xiaoqin was just a step away from breaking through. He reached into his backpack and found that there were no more spiritual stones. Xiaoqin was unwilling to give up, so he took a spiritual stone that was left on the side and held it in his hand as he continued to cultivate. 1 spiritual stone, 2 spiritual stones, 3 spiritual stones. Finally, on the 4th spiritual stone, Xiaoqin broke through the barrier and finally stepped into the peak of the 10th qi refinement realm. Hu! Xiaoqin let out a long breath as he circulated his heart sutra to stabilize his realm. Then he stood up. Now that he had 6 spiritual stones left, it wasn't a loss. At that time he could refund the 60 million deposit and the Supernatural Investigation Bureau could also obtain 60 million equivalent points. If he calculated everything he would still have earned 20 million. Although these points didn't belong to Xiaoqin, the 100 million from before wasn't paid by Xiaoqin. What's more, Xiaoqin could still continue to search. Sure enough, after Xiaoqin walked for a while, he once again found a group of desert parasitic scorpions. Just like the last time, from afar there was a flash of light. There might be a dozen or so of them. Xiaoqin didn't stop and directly began to collect them. After a while he had collected 5 or 6 spiritual stones. However, he also stopped because he saw a few people walking over from afar. Xiaoqin's 6 senses were very sharp. He could feel that someone was coming from such a distance, but the people who came did not have this ability. They only saw Xiaoqin when they were very close. At this moment, Xiaoqin had already collected the spiritual stones. He was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed and studying the map, just like an ordinary trial tester. There were a total of 4 people, 2 men and 2 women. Xiaoqin glanced at them from afar and put away the map. His action was very natural and did not arouse the suspicion of the 4 people. "Brother Sun, there is a trial tester in front," one of the men said to the other man. The man called Brother Sun nodded and said to the other man, "And little Xiao, go and ask him what his strength is and if he is willing to travel together." "Okay, Brother Sun." Little Xiao nodded and quickly walked towards Xiaoqin. He cupped his fists and asked, "Young hero, may I ask what mission you are doing?" "I did accept a mission to find spiritual stones, but..." Xiaoqin didn't finish his sentence. He deliberately paused to give people some room to imagine. Sure enough, when little Xiao heard this he was stunned and immediately said, "Is it the 100 million security deposit mission?" "That's right." Xiaoqin smiled bitterly and nodded. "It seems that young hero is not a cultivator from around here. You must have been scammed by someone, right? How can spiritual stones be so easy to find? You should also be able to see that in this desert, those flashing lights in the distance are spiritual stones. However, there are desert parasitic scorpions hidden underneath them. They are a very difficult desert creature to deal with. They are very aggressive and poisonous. The spiritual stones can be seen but not touched." Little Xiao smiled and said, "Young hero, you are a cautious person. You should have noticed that something was wrong and didn't make a move, right?" Xiaoqin smiled and did not deny it. He said, "What mission are you guys doing?" "Our mission is to find a medicinal herb. Actually, this is just an excuse. Our real goal is to go to Dao Comprehension Sand Valley." Little Xiao did not hide anything and said directly, "Young hero, you should know about this, right? Dao Comprehension Sand Valley?" Xiaoqin was slightly stunned. He had never heard of it before. Seeing Xiaoqin's stunned expression, little Xiao was also stunned. Did this guy really not know about it? He saw that Xiaoqin's expression did not seem to be fake. After some thought, he suddenly said, "Young hero, if you were scammed by the spiritual stone search mission, then you must not be a cultivator from around here. It's normal that you don't know about it." Xiaoqin nodded and said, "Indeed, I'm not from around here." At this moment, the one called Brother Sun and the 2 female cultivators also walked over. He did not know whether they were martial cultivators or devil cultivators. However, based on their temperament, Xiaoqin could tell that they were martial masters. "Little Xiao, how is it? Does he also want to go to Dao Comprehension Sand Valley?" Brother Sun asked. Brother Sun, it's like this. Little Xiao explained Xiao Chen's situation to Brother Sun and said, he still doesn't know about Dao Comprehension Sand Valley. Moreover, it's obvious that he was scammed by the spiritual stone mission. Although the reward for that mission is generous, he still needs to get his hands on it. Oh, in this direction I thought it was a fellow cultivator. Brother Sun shook his head in disappointment. However, he suddenly thought of something and said, I wonder if young hero has already found the spiritual stones? Xiao Chen's heart trembled and his expression slightly changed. He did not know why this person suddenly asked this question. Did they want to rob him of his spiritual stones? Although the 4 people in front of him might be martial artists, Xiao Chen was not a pushover. He was now a cultivator at the peak of the 10th layer of the refinement stage. Even if he could not kill them, it would not be a problem for him to defeat a few of them and escape. Seeing the change in Xiao Chen's expression, Brother Sun hurriedly explained, Young hero, please don't misunderstand. We are not trying to rob you of your spiritual stones. Chapter 629. Yeah, you can ask around. Our son bro, Maoguang, is a famous figure in this generation. He often participates in trials. He asked this because he wanted to ask you if you're interested in going to the Dao Comprehension Sand Valley with us. Little Xiao was also by the side and hurriedly explained. Oh, first I want to know what kind of place this Sand Valley is and what it does. Also, what does joining you have to do with going to the Sand Valley and Spirit Stones? Xiao Chen asked without batting an eyelid. The Sand Valley of Enlightenment is a place to understand the heavenly Tao. We practice martial arts, and in the martial world, both martial and demonic, we all want to achieve greater strength. I heard that there's a very profound martial technique there, and if you master it, you'll be able to fight opponents of a higher level, easily killing opponents of the same level. As Brother Sun spoke, an envious look appeared on his face. It was obvious that he really wanted this martial skill. What does it have to do with spirit stones? Xiao Chen asked. He wasn't that excited about the martial technique. After all, he was a cultivator and could already fight opponents of a higher level. If he had a powerful martial technique, however, he'd be able to unleash a greater effect. He wasn't disappointed even if he didn't have it. There's a formation to the Sand Valley of Enlightenment, and in order to activate it, you'll need to place 10 spirit stones in. Sun Bro said, if you have spirit stones, you can join us. So you're saying that if you bring me there, I'll have to fork out 50 spirit stones? Xiao Chen's expression was a bit strange. You think I have 50 spirit stones? Even if Xiao Chen did have it before, he didn't have it now. But did he look like he was rich? That's not it. You only need to take out 2 spirit stones. Knowing that Xiao Chen was an outsider, Sun Bro wasn't too surprised. He only explained, the formation can only allow 5 people to pass through at most once. If you go, you'll be able to share 2 spirit stones, but if you don't go, then the 4 of us will have to share it. So that's how it is. Spirit stones also have this kind of effect. Xiao Chen nodded his head and said, then what are the benefits if I join? When Brother Sun heard what Xiao Chen said, he knew that Xiao Chen definitely had 2 spirit stones. Otherwise he would not have asked so much. He was immediately overjoyed and said, as for the benefits, it all depends on one's own luck. I heard that this Dao Comprehension Sand Valley is a place where ancient almighty beings practice their martial techniques. When we go there, we will also be comprehending the heavenly Tao there and comprehend this martial technique. This will depend on one's comprehension ability. If you can comprehend it, then it's yours. If you can't, then don't blame others. There's such a thing? After Xiao Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be very surprised. It was the first time he heard that one could learn martial skills from comprehension. However, in ancient times, he heard that there were many powerful people who could obtain the inheritance of martial skills just by practicing in a place. It was not impossible. But, are you sure this is true? Xiao Chen did not suspect that Brother Sun had other motives. What he suspected was whether this matter was true or not. If Brother Sun coveted the spirit stones on him, he would have already taken action. There was no need to speak so much nonsense to deceive him and lure him to this Dao Comprehension Sand Valley. Of course it's true. This is not a secret. In the past 1 or 2 years, the matter of this Dao Comprehension Sand Valley has already spread. Brother Sun smiled and said, when you entered the Hakanamata Desert, didn't the deacon of the warrior guild tell you to quickly return after completing the mission? Don't stay in the desert, it's easy to get lost? That's true. Xiao Chen thought in his heart. Could it be that there was some connection between the two? Indeed, Brother Sun chuckled, that was a lie. Actually, they were afraid that you would give up on the mission and not return after going to the Dao Comprehension Sand Valley. Not return? Then they don't have to return the 100 million to me. What loss do they have? Xiao Qin was stunned. That 100 million is the security deposit. If you don't go out, this money will be frozen and they can't use it. Brother Sun said, the main problem is that many cultivators come to the Hakanamada Desert to go to the Tao Comprehension Sand Valley. They don't really want to complete the mission. This causes these people in the desert to constantly look for other people to form a team with. Those cultivators who really want to complete the mission are also lured away. Then who else would come to complete the mission? Of course, the warrior guild doesn't want this to happen. That's why they lied to you that it's easy to get lost in the desert. They told you to quickly finish the mission and return. That means to say many people have already obtained the martial technique? Then after we go, what's left? Xiao Qin could not help but ask. After those people went, they never returned. I heard that they were trying to comprehend the martial technique in the Tao Comprehension Sand Valley. Since they couldn't comprehend it, I don't think anyone is willing to leave that place, right? Brother Sun said, that's an ancient martial technique. Just hearing about it makes one's blood boil. If I were to obtain it then? Oh. Xiao Qin's heart sank. He was a cultivator. He had no interest in such a martial technique. It was hard for him to imagine that a martial technique could make people so crazy. He didn't believe that Brother Sun was a fool and couldn't tell that there was a problem. Those people who went to the Tao Comprehension Sand Valley actually didn't return. There must be a problem here. However, he probably didn't want to think about it. Even if he knew, he would only be deceiving himself. Because the temptation of an ancient martial technique was too strong. Actually, this was in accordance with the saying, you are not a fish, how can you know the joy of a fish? Xiao Qin wasn't a cultivator. Moreover, he could fight opponents who were of a higher level than him. Therefore, he didn't have any passion for that ancient martial technique. So many people went, but none of them comprehended it? Don't you think that this is strange? Xiao Qin asked in a deep voice. Strange? It's not really strange. You said that no one came out. I'm afraid that even if you and I comprehended it, would we say it out loud? Definitely not, right? He would only use it during a crucial battle. At that time, he wouldn't admit that he had comprehended the martial technique here. Instead, he would use other methods to cover it up. Otherwise, someone would definitely look for him. Brother Sun didn't think much of it. Or perhaps, those who knew about it are already dead. If it were me, I would also keep quiet and make a fortune. Who would tell others? That's right, young hero. Look at how foolish you are. You were tricked into doing this Spirit Stone search mission for 100 million. I don't think you have any ulterior motives. There's no harm in telling you that the matter of this martial skill is very reliable. According to many sources of research, this place is indeed the remains of an ancient martial arts practice. Little Xiao, who was at the side, interrupted. Xiao Qin didn't want to go at first, but his heart was moved. Brother Sun and Little Xiao had said so much, but Xiao Qin wasn't moved at all. There was only one key point that attracted him, and that was that no one who went to Tao Comprehension Sand Valley came out. Then, did his father and his team go to this place? It wasn't common for an entire team to disappear. Usually, these trial missions didn't take them to unfamiliar places, but places where many trial takers had practiced. Even if they encountered danger, it would only be one or two people. So, Xiao Qin thought that his father might have gone there. Seeing Brother Sun and Little Xiao's passion, Xiao Qin underestimated the attraction of ancient martial techniques to martial cultivators. Then, his father and the others might not be spared. Alright, since there's such a powerful technique, of course I'll go. Xiao Qin slapped his thigh with anticipation and excitement. Then I won't hand in my spirit stones. Let's go to Tao Comprehension Sand Valley. You're straightforward, young hero. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sun Maoguang, the leader of this team. This is my Tao partner Mei Xiaoyan. Brother Sun introduced. The other two are my friends Xiao Xiaobai and his Tao partner Hao Tong Tong. We're both first and second stage martial cultivators. What about you, young hero? I'm Xiao Chong, a first stage demon master, Xiao Qin said. That ancient martial technique wouldn't be useless for us demon cultivators, would it? So you're a demon cultivator. Sun Maoguang nodded and smiled. Of course not. That ancient martial technique relies on comprehension and mastery, merging it into your original technique and making it suit you. It's not an unchanging technique. Is that amazing? Xiao Qin said, surprised. That's right. Otherwise, I'd say that someone must have already learned the technique and mastered it, but because it's based on the person's situation, even two people who learned it at the same time might not know each other when they fight, Maoguang explained. It's an ancient martial technique after all, so it has to have its own uniqueness. That's great, I'll go. Xiao Qin was very excited, but he actually wanted to know where his father was. If that's the case, let's go together. Mao Guang was very happy to be able to save 2 spirit stones. Spirit stones weren't cheap, otherwise the warrior guild wouldn't be able to put up a bounty. Only the martial artists in the secular world did not know the value of spirit stones and spirit jades. However, the people in the martial arts world already knew that these things were a kind of energy stone used to activate formations. They were in high demand. Mao Guang had a map, so Xiao Qin followed him. They saw quite a few desert hermit scorpions along the way, but Xiao Qin didn't make a move. The samadhi fire was too strange and he didn't want to show it in front of these people. This son Mao Guang had evidently done missions in Hakuna Mata often, and was very familiar with the paths in the desert. He could walk for a long time with just one look as if he was on a familiar road. However, this also confirmed his words. He was a famous adventurer in this area. But if that was the case, Xiao Qin was a little doubtful. After some hesitation, he couldn't help but ask, "Brother son, forgive me for being blunt, but you're a famous participant in this area, so why didn't you go to that Sand Valley of Enlightenment earlier?" Chapter 630. "Ha, that's what you're asking?" Mao Guang laughed. "You're still suspecting me of lying to you? But I can tell you that I knew about this a long time ago, but I didn't have any spirit stones. The 4 of us are in the same team and we usually advance and retreat together. It wasn't easy for us to gather 10 spirit stones, so we only managed to gather them a few days ago. That's why it took a few days to collect all of them. It also cost a lot. Now Wulin is also buying spirit stones. Spirit stones are priceless. The reason why we let you join us is that we want to save 2 spirit stones, which is also a lot of money." Xiao Qin came to a realization after hearing that. It was easy for him to obtain spirit stones, but the same could not be said for others. Those desert parasitic scorpions could not be touched at all. Once they were provoked, there would be endless trouble and they might even lose their lives. They could only rely on themselves to search for spirit stones buried in the desert, and that was a difficult task. It was already quite a feat for Mao Guang to gather 10 of them. "That's right, I got these spirit stones by chance and they're indeed hard to find." Xiao Qin nodded. The 5 of them walked together and Xiao Qin followed behind them. They didn't run into anything on the way, save for the occasional cultivator or 2, but they were all in a hurry and had their own business to attend to. Mao Guang, on the other hand, had already found a partner in Xiao Qin, so naturally he wouldn't look for anyone else. After a day and night of traveling, the 5 of them arrived at a naturally formed valley. Xiao Qin couldn't help but sigh at the miraculousness of nature. There was actually a desert valley here, and the nearby desert didn't fall in and fill it up. "This is Enlightenment Sand Valley. I heard that in the ancient times, someone with great godlike powers carved out a training ground with a long blade." Mao Guang's words were directed at Xiao Qin, because everyone else already knew about Dao Enlightenment Sand Valley. Only he didn't. "Oh, it's actually man-made?" Xiao Qin was a bit surprised. He'd thought that it was naturally formed. Just how powerful would it take to create something like this? That's the Sand Valley's teleportation array. The mountains and split if you don't know and recklessly jump into the Sand Valley, you will definitely learn a thing or two from this altar seemed to be very ancient. Of the crop in the martial world. There was no sand on it. Mao Guang's eyes surface were bright. Was very smooth. He was excited to be here. I'm going to activate the formation now. Please follow my instructions. It can't be that we're jumping down 5 corners of the formation. Xiao Qin looked at the endless valley of stones and placed them in the holes in front of the corners. He seemed to feel that there was something in the valley calling out to him. Like the others, Xiao Qin chose a corner and stood on it. Mao Guang smiled as he took out a map and started walking along the edge of the valley in front of his feet. Finally, they saw something that looked like an altar not too far away. After doing all of this, Xiao Qin could vaguely feel a ripple of energy coming from the altar. Mao Guang called out, "The formation is about to activate. Everyone don't move. Stand still and don't leave the corners or you won't be teleported in." Xiao Qin took a deep breath. He had an ominous premonition in his heart. It was as though he wouldn't be able to come out once he entered. However, in order to find out whether his father was here or not, Xiao Qin could only brace himself and enter. All of a sudden, a white light flashed across the formation, and Xiao Qin and the others' vision went black. With another flash of light, they were in a different place. But what surprised Xiao Qin was the fact that he was in a long valley of sand. He couldn't see the sky. It was all gray above and he couldn't see the sun, moon, or stars. All he could see was some faint light and he didn't know what it was. As expected, this wasn't an area that could be reached just by jumping off the edge of Sand Valley. This was a new, unknown place. Xiao Qin took a deep breath and turned around. Mao Guang and the others were looking around curiously as well, but they couldn't tell what was going on. "This is Sand Valley?" Xiao Qin asked uncertainly. "How come there's no one here? Shouldn't there be a lot of people here?" As he said this, Xiao Chen's heart sank. Had he been tricked by this Mao Guang? But looking at him now, he was confused as well. Could it be that he was thinking too much? It's my first time here as well. Mao Guang started to panic after hearing Xiao Chen's question. This place? What's going on? Why isn't there anyone here? When Xiao Chen heard this, he was a little speechless. It turned out that this guy didn't know either. Looking at him earlier, he thought he knew a lot. But there was indeed a strange area here, and Xiao Chen wanted to explore it. He wasn't in a rush, and instead he looked into the distance quietly. His senses were sharp, and he hoped to see something. However, it was a pity that even though Xiao Chen was a cultivator, he could not see into the distance. The light here was dim, and everything in front of him was gray. Xiao Chen's divine sense was also in vain, as if there was something blocking it. Mao Guang's uncertainty made Xiao Xiaobai and the others a little panicky. They'd thought that there would be a lot of people here studying techniques together, but there was no one else other than them. Wasn't this a little too strange? Let's walk around? Mao Guang suggested after a pause. Oh, this place is so weird. Sunbro, will there be trouble if we just walk around? Maybe we should just go out, I don't want to study anymore. His passion from before was gone, and Xiao Xiaobai was backing off. Go out? Mao Guang smiled bitterly. It's easy to get in, but I don't know how to get out. Then even if we learn the techniques, we can't get out? Xiao Xiaobai said worriedly. I thought there would be a lot of people here and we'd know everything if we asked them, but… Mao Guang didn't know what to do. There's no point in not going. Who knows, we might find something if we walk around. Xiao Chen had calmed down by now. The spiritual qi here was quite abundant, and it should be a good place. It wouldn't be as fast as cultivating with spirit stones, but it'd be much faster than outside. Places like this usually had treasures of some sort, just like the ancient ruins. Logically speaking, if they could get in, they should be able to get out. Even if he couldn't, there was still the Elder Heaven Ancestor. You're right, let's just walk around. Mao Guang agreed. Xiao Xiaobai had no choice but to follow along, choosing a direction and walking forward. Time passed quickly. Xiao Chen and the others had already been walking in this quiet, empty and uninhabited sand valley for 3 hours. Apart from the yellow sand, there was nothing else around them. They were far away and they couldn't see the end. This kind of repeated scene was the easiest to panic. Xiao Xiaobai's face was pale. Sunbro, Master Xiao. Are we going the right way? We have to keep going. What difference does it make? Xiao Chen said faintly as he looked at him. In the boundless sand valley, there were no paths on either side. There were no other paths except to go forward or backward. What else could they do but go forward? Sigh. Xiao Xiaobai sighed. If there's no end, will we all die here one day? Xiao Chen didn't reply because he didn't know if that was a possibility. But at least there was some hope and he had to keep going. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. After 10 days, even Xiao Chen wasn't feeling confident anymore. Were they going the right way? Could this sand valley be a circular cycle? Were they just going around in circles? At the thought of this, Xiao Chen wanted to use his hand to make a mark on both sides of the sand valley. However, to his disappointment, although the sand on both sides did not fall, no matter what Xiao Chen made, it would be covered by the quicksand in the next moment and return to its original state. There were no marks left under their feet either. Their footprints would be covered up by the quicksand the moment they stepped on them. It was an unchanging pattern. Now, even if there was a giant circle, they wouldn't be able to feel it. Xiao Chen's heart sank, feeling like something wasn't right. This place was too strange, and no matter how big it was impossible to not even see a feather after walking for so long. According to Mao Guang, many cultivators had been here before, so where did they go? What did they leave behind? At that thought, Xiao Chen took off a foot from his shirt and threw it on the ground, wanting to make a mark. But something even stranger happened. The corner of his shirt sank into the quicksand and disappeared, like a ginseng fruit falling to the ground. There was no sound, as if it had never been there. At this point, everyone was starting to panic. Xiao Chen had tried to leave a mark, and they all understood how strange the situation was. Even Mao Guang was hesitating. I think we might be going in circles in Dune Valley. We can't see too far in the fog and we can't tell if we're going straight or not. Chapter 631. Xiao Xiaobai and Hao Tong Tong were holding hands, panicking. Mao Guang's partner was also holding Mao Guang's hand, not knowing what to do. Someone's here. Xiao Chen was practically shouting this. Just as everyone was starting to lose hope, his sixth sense discovered a cultivator. He didn't know how strong this person was, but this was great news. Xiao Chen was so happy that even his tone changed a little. Mao Guang and the other three tried their best to look ahead, but they didn't see anything. Master Xiao, are you hallucinating? Mao Guang sighed disappointed. As soon as he said this, Xiao Xiaobai jumped up excitedly. There's someone here. That's right, there's someone here. This is great. Mao Guang paused and turned his head, and as expected, there was a figure walking over from afar. This made him very happy, and before the cultivator even got close, he was already calling out excitedly, "Friend, are you here to learn martial arts? Is there anyone else here?" The person paused when he saw Xiao Chen's group but nodded. "That's right, what is it? I'd like to ask, how do I learn martial arts here? May I ask where you're going, friend? Why don't we go together?" Mao Guang said quickly. "Behind you." The man pointed behind him and said, "There's no need, I'm leaving this place." With that, he didn't linger, walking past Xiao Chen as if in a hurry to go somewhere. "Friend, can you stay for a moment? Can you tell us what's going on here? Is there anyone else? You're leaving?" "Oh." Mao Guang asked a bunch of questions. The person seemed to be getting impatient and pointed behind him again. "Everything you need to know is at the back. I don't have time for you right now, I'm going to test out my martial arts." After saying that, he quickly left without looking back. Xiao Chen looked at the man's back as he left. He was slightly puzzled. From the man's dirty and tattered clothes, he could tell that he had been here for a long time. It was impossible for him to have just arrived. His hair and beard were very long. It was obvious that he hadn't trimmed them for a long time. This meant that this person had been here for a period of time, and he was rushing to the other side, saying that he wanted to leave and verify something. Could it be that the other side was the exit? However, what this person said and what he wanted to know were all in the back, which was the direction they were heading in. Could it be that there were really answers there? Xiao Xiaobai hesitated. "Let's go this way. Since he came this way, there must be something there. We can't give up." Mao Guang saw them and suddenly regained his confidence. "Everyone keep it up." Xiao Chen nodded. He also wanted to see what was going on. Although that person looked impatient, he didn't seem to be lying. "All right." Xiao Xiaobai saw that Xiao Chen had agreed, and so he brought his partner along with them. Mao Guang was in high spirits now, and he didn't feel bored at all. They walked for another 3 days and finally they could vaguely see a group of people in front of them. There are people and more than one. This is great. That friend didn't lie to us. There are people here. Mao Guang cried out excitedly. Xiao Xiaobai's heart skipped a beat, and he let out a sigh of relief. He pulled his partner forward quickly, and Xiao Chen on the other hand was a little excited. Would his father be among these people? As the 5 of them approached, they could see that the end of the sand valley was not far away. At the end there was a cliff blocking their way. It seemed that this wasn't some great circulation, but that this sand valley was just that long. On top of the cliff was a crack that descended from the heavens. They didn't know how tall the cliff was, but it pierced straight into the misty sky. The crack was also from top to bottom, so they couldn't see how high it was. There were many people sitting cross-legged in front of the cliff. Some had their eyes closed in contemplation, some had their brows furrowed, some were happy and some were yelling. Who knew what they were doing? There were also some people on the 2 sides of the sand valley not far away. They were continuously executing martial techniques at the sand valley. There were all sorts of martial techniques. However, it was unknown what they were attacking. The sand valley's walls caved in from the attacks, but it was immediately filled up by the sand and returned to its original state. These people, what are they doing? Xiao Xiaobai asked, confused. Excuse me, what are you guys doing? Mao Guang cupped his fist. But no one paid attention to him. Everyone was busy with their own things and no one even looked at them. Xiao Chen looked at them and frowned. They're probably learning techniques, but they're too focused, or maybe they don't want to talk to us at all. Oh. Mao Guang's eyes lit up and he nodded in agreement. Indeed, judging from their expressions, they're probably practicing martial arts. Those people who are using techniques must have learned something, and they're testing it out on the side. At that moment, one of the people sitting cross-legged on the ground suddenly laughed and stood up, going to the side to practice. Mao Guang quickly walked up and cupped his fist. Brother, may I ask if you've learned the technique? Indeed, I was just about to test it out. The person paused, not expecting someone to talk to him, but he nodded anyway. Then can you tell me what's going on here? How do I learn it? Mao Guang asked. I don't have time, I'm going to test it out. Get out of the way. The person said impatiently, as if he was going to use the technique the next moment. Brother, you should at least drink some water or eat something. I have some rations in my backpack, do you want some? Mao Guang said. Eat my ass. Get out of the way or I won't go easy on you. The person's aura changed, revealing that he was a fourth-stage martial practitioner. This gave Mao Guang a fright and he quickly got out of the way. Seeing that Mao Guang knew his place, the person nodded and said, "Sit there and meditate. Try to communicate with the martial intent of Dune Valley." Then he started to use his martial skills on the walls of the Sand Valley. Ping ping pang pang. But Mao Guang's next sentence made Xiao Qin think of something. "We haven't eaten anything in the past few days?" Huh? Mao Guang paused. Indeed, they hadn't eaten anything since entering Dune Valley. They'd even eaten some rations when they were outside, and now that they'd been here for more than 10 days, they hadn't had a single drop of water. But they didn't feel anything wrong. Everyone was nervous here, and since it wasn't night, they were counting time on their watches, so they didn't think about eating. They didn't even feel sleepy. This Dune Valley is weird. We don't feel tired or sleepy and we don't feel hungry. I think the energy here is keeping us alive," Xiao Qin said. He was a cultivator and it was fine even if he didn't eat for a few days. Mao Guang, on the other hand, was a martial practitioner and he was fine as well. Plus, the martial practitioner had said that there was no need to eat here. "This really is a great place." Mao Guang sighed. "Let's give it a try." With that, Mao Guang sat down cross-legged impatiently and closed his eyes, starting to comprehend the Tao. The others did the same, imitating him. Xiao Qin wasn't in a rush. He was here to find his father, Xiao Feng, so he started looking for him among the cultivators. There were a lot of cultivators here. As far as the eye could see, there were at least a few hundred of them. Xiao Qin had to spend a lot of effort to find them one by one. However, everyone was busy comprehending the Tao and practicing their martial skills. No one paid any attention to Xiao Qin. Who cared if he was walking back and forth? Finally, Xiao Qin looked through all of them but didn't see his father anywhere. This made him a little disappointed. It seemed like his father wasn't here, but he might have already left. After all, hadn't the cultivator he'd met earlier said that he was going out? It seemed like the other side of Dune Valley was where they left. With that thought, Xiao Qin wasn't in a hurry. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Since there were so many martial and demonic cultivators here, all of them meditating, it meant that this place wasn't just a rumor. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people here. Thinking up to this point, Xiao Qin found a corner, sat down cross-legged and began to meditate. In truth, he did not know how he was supposed to comprehend it. He could only imitate the way others did. After closing his eyes, his mind became clear. At first, Xiao Qin couldn't feel anything at all. He just felt a little drowsy, but he couldn't fall asleep. He didn't know what kind of energy existed here, but as long as he was in Dune Valley, he wouldn't feel tired. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Suddenly, a faintly discernible feeling seemed to circulate around Xiao Qin's mind. He quickly caught hold of this feeling. It seemed to be an aura from ancient times. Although he closed his eyes, in his mind he could see the crack on the cliff, and that aura seemed to come from the crack. Xiao Qin had already guessed that this aura should be the martial intent that the cultivator had mentioned before. He actually succeeded. Xiao Qin was pleasantly surprised because he saw that many people nearby didn't feel anything. After a period of time, they would open their eyes, scratch their ears and cheeks, or get up and change places to continue. These people obviously didn't comprehend anything, otherwise they wouldn't be like this. Chapter 632. What kind of cultivator would stand up midway and change places? Xiao Qin didn't think that he would be so lucky. Perhaps it was because he was a true cultivator that he had only used a few days of effort to feel the martial intent. Feeling this hazy martial intent, Xiao Qin unconsciously began to imagine a scene in his mind. There was a person holding a long saber in his hand, constantly practicing something in the Sand Valley. And as this person appeared, the martial intent became increasingly clear, making Xiao Qin feel as if he was immersed in it. Subconsciously, Xiao Qin seemed to have entered the picture formed by the aura of the martial intent. He looked at the person and slowly approached him. Before he had even taken a few steps, he felt a fierce murderous aura. So strong. Xiao Qin was still far away from the person, but he was already startled. What a powerful martial skill this was. It was as if this fierce murderous aura would immediately bounce him away. The saber swept out, and the murderous aura was like the saber had turned into a substance, sweeping across Xiao Qin's body. Xiao Qin felt as if his entire body was being torn apart, and the clothes on his body were also riddled with holes. He subconsciously took 2 steps back and the second saber followed. He felt several more scars appear all over his body. Was this a world of thoughts or did it really exist? Xiao Qin took a deep breath and retreated again, not daring to take even half a step closer. Because Xiao Chen was far away, the murderous aura had dissipated. He stared intently at the figure not too far away. In the sand valley, the figure was wielding the long saber back and forth. The saber shadows crisscrossed, and the sides of the nearby sand valley became uneven. Although it quickly recovered, the damage caused by the martial skill was far greater than Xiao Chen's. His saber could completely sink the side of the sand valley. Although it was only for a short period of time, and then it would quickly recover. But this was a characteristic of the sand valley. But from the depth of the depression, one could see that the strength of this saber was by no means ordinary. While Xiao Chen was secretly amazed, the figure's movements suddenly changed. From the original ordinary practice, it seemed like he was about to start activating a big move. The figure suddenly leaped up and then swiftly slashed out with his saber. In an instant, it brought about thousands upon thousands of saber shadows that flickered with silver light. It was a dazzling sight, and the killing intent produced by this saber instantly caused Xiao Chen to feel as if he couldn't breathe. He subconsciously took another 2 steps back. Amazing. Xiao Chen was shocked. He was so far away, but he was still affected by the killing intent of this move. How fierce was this? To be able to cause damage to the enemy from such a distance, just how powerful was this move? One move after another. Once this move was activated, the next move would be ready. The figure began to incessantly activate his big move. A terrifying murderous aura surged over like a tidal wave. Xiao Chen's scalp went numb. He only felt that if he were to face this mighty figure, he would be captured without putting up a fight. He wouldn't even have the chance to attack before he would be cleaved into 2 by this person's saber. Xiao Chen felt that the murderous aura produced by this saber shadow could practically tear the entire Dao Comprehension Sand Valley to pieces. Perhaps this Dao Comprehension Sand Valley had been carved out by this figure's saber? Only such a capable person could possess such immense strength. However, gradually Xiao Chen's mind was no longer filled with murderous aura. Instead, he began to form a connection with the figure. Slowly, he could see the saber shadow's traces clearly. He subconsciously began to follow the figure and activating the dark flame palm, imitating the figure. When the figure slashed out with his saber, Xiao Chen would strike out with his palm. At the beginning, the power of Xiao Chen's martial technique was only ordinary. It could only leave a small hole on the side walls of the sand valley. However, gradually, the hole became bigger and bigger. Xiao Chen couldn't help but be overjoyed. This meant that his martial technique was improving. Could it be that he had really comprehended something from this? However, he had a vague feeling that there was something strange about this. This was because the dark flame palm was still the same dark flame palm. The circulation method had not changed, and the method of activation had not changed either. Could such a huge change be achieved just by following the figure's execution? At this moment, the figure suddenly leaped up. It looked like he was about to activate an even more powerful big move. Xiao Chen was shocked. He hurriedly watched carefully without blinking. He saw the figure rise into the air and quickly turn around in the air. Suddenly he attacked. It was a saber slash at Xiao Chen. Although the 2 of them were quite a distance apart, Xiao Chen felt intense pain all over his body at this moment. The overwhelming shadow of the blade swept towards him and a tearing pain surged through his entire body. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying, landing heavily on the ground not far away. Xiao Chen took a deep breath. His face was a little pale, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he slowly stood up and raised his right hand. He imitated the figure just now and activated the dark flame palm. Boom! A mountain-splitting and sea-splitting aura surged out from Xiao Chen's palm. Like a long saber cutting through the air, it smashed into the sand valley's side wall. This palm seemed to directly break the sand valley's side wall. The murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Was this the power of this martial technique? Xiao Chen was completely shocked. He did not expect himself to be able to activate such a powerful palm strike. If he were to use it outside, it would not be a problem for him to surpass his cultivation level. It could even be said that martial masters in the 3rd or 4th layer would be killed instantly by him. It would be child's play. This was simply raising the combat power of a martial technique to the limit. At this moment, Xiao Chen suddenly recovered from his previous enlightenment. He opened his eyes and saw that he was still sitting cross-legged in the sand valley. His clothes weren't torn and he wasn't injured. Everything that had happened just now was all an illusion. It was a form of communication through consciousness. It wasn't real. Xiao Chen stood up and came to an empty side wall of the sand valley. He circulated the mantra, raised his palm, and slapped the side wall of the sand valley. Boom! An unparalleled aura surged out. The side wall of the sand valley was directly blasted by Xiao Qin. Although it quickly returned to normal, its power was countless times stronger. Could it be that all of this was real? Had he already comprehended this martial technique and fused it for his own use? Xiao Qin was a little shocked. He tried to activate his palm again, but it was still the same. The power was so great that it surprised Xiao Qin. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then he turned to look at the others. Some people were comprehending while others were practicing. However, those who were practicing did not fully comprehend it. Some people only comprehended a part of it before returning to reality and starting to experiment. These people would continue to comprehend after experimenting. However, not far from Xiao Qin, a person was also activating a powerful martial technique. This person's strength seemed to be only at the first level of a martial master, but the martial technique he was activating shocked Xiao Qin. Although it wasn't as powerful as Xiao Qin's dark flame palm, it wasn't bad either. He was actually activating a martial technique that was similar to the 5th or 6th level of a martial master. If this happened outside, it would simply be shocking. Ha, it's done. I finally comprehended the heavenly Tao and fused the martial technique. Ha, if I go out, I'll be invincible under the same level. That person laughed excitedly. Even if I have to fight an opponent of a higher level, it won't be a problem. May I ask if you've succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao and want to go out? Xiao Qin asked. Xiao Qin had also succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao and fused the martial technique. Therefore, there was no point in staying here any longer. His main purpose here was to find his father. Since his father wasn't here, it was better to leave as soon as possible. It just so happened that he didn't know how to get out. This person seemed to know and was about to leave. Xiao Qin planned to go with him. What? You actually noticed me? That person was shocked after hearing Xiao Qin's words. He activated the martial technique and then laughed wildly towards the sky. It was all subconscious, but he didn't want others to know that he had succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao. Because if someone knew and spread the news, how would he deal with them? Although he could fight an opponent of a higher level, if a 10th level martial master suddenly appeared, then no matter how powerful he was, it would be useless. And? Xiao Qin was a little stunned. Yes, I want to go out. Do you know how to go out? How about we go together? That person coldly snorted and suddenly attacked without warning. It was obvious that he wanted to silence Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin didn't expect that this person would actually raise his hand and attack. He was caught off guard. He was stunned and hurriedly responded. A dark flame palm struck out and collided with that person's palm. Boom! With a loud sound, that person was directly sent flying. Although he wasn't directly beaten to death, he was covered in dust and vomited blood. You also succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao? That person originally thought that Xiao Qin didn't succeed in comprehending the heavenly Tao, so he wanted to silence Xiao Qin. However, since Xiao Qin had succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao, why would he still kill him? The two of them had a common secret. Even if they went out together, they would still keep it a secret. Xiao Qin looked at that person's expression and listened to his words. He roughly guessed why this person wanted to attack. He was a little speechless. The person who had succeeded in comprehending the heavenly Tao in the Sand Valley had just been unwilling to pay attention to them. However, he didn't raise his hand to kill them. Of course, it was also possible that he didn't attack because there were many of them. This person saw that Xiao Qin was alone, so he attacked. That's right. Xiao Qin nodded. All right, in that case, let's go together, that person said. Xiao Qin checked his body. That person didn't cause him any harm. Although the power of that person's martial arts technique was equivalent to the 5th or 6th stage of a martial master. Oh, Xiao Qin was suddenly shocked. His joy at the improvement of his martial arts technique instantly vanished. The martial arts technique that person displayed just now was indeed at the 5th or 6th stage of a martial master. However, when it hit Xiao Qin's body, Xiao Qin felt that it was only at the 1st stage of a martial master. It was not at the 5th or 6th stage at all. Chapter 633. In other words, the damage this person's technique dealt to him was equal to the person's own strength. What was going on? At the thought, Xiao Qin glanced at the person. That move he'd used in a hurry and hadn't used his full strength. But even so, Xiao Qin's technique could instantly kill a 4th or 5th level martial master. So why couldn't he kill a 1st level martial master? At this moment he suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. There was something strange about this sand valley. I'm not leaving, you go first. Xiao Qin waved his hand. I'm going to continue my enlightenment. Oh, do whatever you want. The person frowned but didn't say anything else. He turned around and left. Xiao Qin waited for that person to leave before launching another attack at the side wall of the Dune Valley. Boom. Not bad, it was equivalent to a 5th or 7th level martial master, but who would believe that a technique like this couldn't even kill a 1st level martial master? Could it be that the technique's corresponding defense had increased as well? That was impossible, because if one's own strength hadn't increased, how could one's defense have increased? Xiao Qin was a bit doubtful. This wasn't normal at all. Whether it was the power of the technique or the dent on the side walls, it seemed like the technique had increased, but when it actually hit a person, there was no such increase in power. All of a sudden Xiao Qin realized something. That's right, were those people who had comprehended the martial skill really able to hide themselves after leaving the Dao Comprehension Sand Valley? Even if those martial masters hid themselves, had there been no general-level masters who'd come here before? What else did these general-level experts need to hide? Why hadn't there been any news at all? Mao Guang had mentioned this before and Xiao Qin had thought that it made sense, but now that he thought about it, it didn't make sense at all. There were no airtight walls in this world, and from the looks of it, there were people who'd left in a few days, so how could they not have displayed their techniques in front of others? Then what did he improve? Was it just for show? But if that was the case, then what was the point of this Sand Valley of Enlightenment? Nothing improved? Did he come here for nothing? That's right, there's something wrong with this valley. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice rang out beside Xiao Qian's ear. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you think there's something wrong too? Xiao Qin was even more certain of his suspicions after hearing Elder Heaven Ancestor's words. I felt something was wrong before. This valley can actually provide you with energy so you don't need to eat to maintain your bodily functions. Then, I think there's something wrong with this enlightenment as well. Old Sky said, I have been paying attention to you. On the surface, the power of the martial skill you activated has increased by a lot. However, from my point of view, I can tell that the power has not increased at all. It is still the same martial skill from before. It is just that the appearance has become stronger. I think so too. Since that's the case, what's the use of it? Xiao Qin asked curiously. I suspect that someone is controlling this entire valley from behind the scenes, Elder Heaven Ancestor said. His words gave Xiao Qin a fright. He wanted to jump up and cry out in alarm, but Elder Heaven Ancestor hurriedly reminded him, don't act blindly without thinking. I suspect that your every move is being monitored. Don't do anything. If our guess is right, dealing with you in someone else's territory will be a piece of cake. All right, Xiao Qin said calmly. He had communicated with Elder Heaven Ancestor through his spiritual sea, so the outside world couldn't sense it. Then what should I do now? Leave this place? Leave? Do you really think there's such a good thing? That you can leave at will? Elder Heaven Ancestor poured cold water on Xiao Qin, which made him calm down. That's right. If there really is someone manipulating all of this behind the scenes in Sand Valley, it would be unbelievable for him to make so many disguises and deceive so many people just to trick them into leaving, unless this person is a psychopath with a bad taste. Xiao Qin also figured this out. If that was the case, then those who said they would leave should not have left. They should have been tricked by the person behind to do something. Yes, so you are now in a dilemma. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, in this place the entire Sand Valley could be controlled. Even I can't do anything about it. If Elder Heaven Ancestor couldn't do anything, then Xiao Qin didn't know what to do. He regretted coming here, but it was useless. The most important thing now was to find a way out. Elder Heaven Ancestor, then it's meaningless for me to stay here. Why don't we go over there and see what this person wants to do? Xiao Qin asked. No, you continue to comprehend. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, but this time you use martial arts. Don't use the dark flame palm. You use the Samadhi True Fire Fireball technique. Oh, why is that? Xiao Qin asked, feeling somewhat confused. Isn't it the same no matter what you activate? It's not the same. Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled and said, martial arts can create an illusion to deceive you, but the Samadhi True Fire can't. If the Samadhi True Fire improves, then it improves. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. This is a cultivator's skill. You should be able to feel whether the temperature of the true fire has changed or not. This is to judge from the inside, not from the outside. Yes. Xiao Qin immediately understood what Elder Heaven Ancestor meant. Since there was someone behind it, then if Xiao Qin used the Samadhi True Fire and couldn't improve his martial arts, then wouldn't it be a failure? If he didn't want to fail, then the person would inevitably take some action. Either this person would show up, or they would certainly take some remedial measures. It was impossible to just let it go. Thinking of this, Xiao Qin sat down cross-legged once again. He closed his eyes and began to communicate with the aura of the martial intent. Very quickly, Xiaoqin connected with the martial intent and once again entered the consciousness space. It was the same shadow that was brandishing the saber, exactly the same as before. That dark flame palm just now isn't my main martial arts, so it's useless to improve it. Xiaoqin said to himself. Now, I need to improve my main martial arts. The shadow didn't seem to hear Xiaoqin's words and continued to practice the martial arts. Xiaoqin also followed him and began to urge the Samadhi true fire, one after another. Sure enough, just like what Elder Heaven Ancestor said, the Samadhi true fire was fire. Even if it hit the side of the sand valley, it wouldn't make any dent. Fire was invisible, so how could it have any effect on the side of the sand valley? Oh, that's not right, why didn't it improve? Xiaoqin said to himself with some doubt. It can't be right? It clearly had an effect just now. The shadow seemed to have paused for a moment. However, it was only an imperceptible moment. Xiaoqin wasn't sure whether the shadow had paused or not, but he still continued to urge the shadow. There's still no effect. This sand valley isn't deceiving people, right? Xiaoqin said tentatively. I have to ask others if there is such a situation. As soon as Xiaoqin said this, the shadow's figure paused again. This time it was very obvious that Xiaoqin had noticed it. Sure enough, Xiaoqin was shocked. This shadow had a consciousness. Whatever he said and did, he knew it. It wasn't a martial intent. However, Xiaoqin naturally pretended not to know. He continued to urge the martial arts and said, could it be that my practice was wrong? Xiaoqin seemed to feel a surge of resentment coming from the shadow's body. He was angry. Xiaoqin was pleasantly surprised. This person had feelings and was angered by him. However, following that, Xiaoqin felt as if something had appeared in his mind. An ancient aura shrouded his entire body. Xiaoqin was shocked. Was this person trying to harm him? However, after being shrouded by this aura, he didn't feel any discomfort in his body. Instead, he felt a powerful heaven and earth aura pouring into his meridians. What was the meaning of this? Xiaoqin was shocked. Where did this heaven and earth aura come from? Moreover, wasn't this heaven and earth aura a little too rich? It was so rich that Xiaoqin was a little shocked. This heaven and earth aura was richer than any heaven and earth aura he had ever seen. It had even surpassed the heaven and earth spirit jades. Xiaoqin, this person is anxious. He wants to use the bone-washing method to improve your martial arts. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's teasing voice sounded in Xiaoqin's ear. Now I can be sure of one thing. Although this person is the person behind the Sand Valley, he can't act recklessly in the Sand Valley. He can only establish contact with the people of the Sand Valley through telepathy. However, if he wants to harm the people of the Sand Valley, that should be impossible. Oh? Through bone and marrow cleansing? Xiaoqin was stunned. That's right. Warriors actually don't need the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. What they cultivate is strength. Even devil cultivators obtain their strength through some heavenly materials and earthly treasures and pills. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth is only effective for cultivators like you. Warriors actually don't know how to use it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said, however, rich heaven and earth aura can wash a martial artist's marrow and bones. It's just like how your medicinal dregs can also wash a martial artist's marrow and bones. In that case, this person is afraid that I will tell others, so he plans to use this method to improve my physical fitness in order to achieve the goal of improving my martial arts strength? Xiaoqin understood. That should be the case. In this way, if you are a martial artist, then your physical strength won't be improved. Only your aptitude will change, so the power of your martial arts will naturally increase. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said with a smile, it seems like this person is anxious. This martial arts technique of yours might seem strange. From the outside, it can't transform into an increase in power. After all, how can that fireball improve? Therefore, you can only increase the power of your martial arts through genuine internal improvement. Chapter 634. Then what should I do now? Xiaoqin asked. Are you stupid or stubborn? What else can you do? There's so much spiritual energy here, it's a waste not to use it. Quickly absorb it and cultivate. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said, this is a great place. You won't be able to find it even if you wanted to. In the cultivation world, this kind of place is rare. Oh. Xiaoqin nodded quickly and began to use the mantra. He began to absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth like crazy. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth flowed through Xiaoqin's meridians. It was so refreshing. If my guess is correct, the spirit stones that you used to enter the gate have all been taken away by this fellow. Previously, The energy that kept you from starving in the Sand Valley came from the spirit stones. The spiritual energy of the world was also extracted by the person behind the scenes of the Sand Valley and placed here. Elder Tian said. Wow, how many spiritual stones did that cost? I've struck it rich this time. Xiao Chen was overjoyed and quickly cultivated. Soon Xiao Chen had entered a state of selflessness. He was crazily absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in front of him. As he absorbed, he subconsciously muttered, rest for a while. I'll continue practicing martial skills later. I don't believe that I won't improve. The figure seemed to be very satisfied with Xiao Chen's current cooperation. Using spiritual energy to cleanse Xiao Chen's marrow and bones was not something that could be done overnight. If Xiao Chen continued to use martial skills at different times, it would inevitably affect the effect. Now that Xiao Chen was sitting cross-legged on the ground and resting, it was the perfect time to cleanse his marrow and bones. However, what the figure didn't know was that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rushing into Xiao Chen's meridians at a terrifying speed. It circulated rapidly in Xiao Chen's meridians and finally gathered in his dantian. However, very soon the figure felt that something was wrong. Why was the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in front of Xiao Chen becoming less and less? What kind of trash physique was this person? How could he waste so much spiritual energy to cleanse his marrow and bones? He had no choice but to continue replenishing Xiao Chen's heaven and earth spiritual qi. Since he was replenishing himself, Xiao Chen pretended not to notice. He absorbed the spiritual qi of heaven and earth at an incomparably rapid speed, not resting for even a moment. This spirit qi was quickly converted into Xiao Chen's essence qi, accumulating bit by bit in his dantian. From the peak of level 10 of the qi refinement realm, Xiao Chen rushed all the way to the peak of the qi refinement realm. Then, with the continuous impact of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, Xiao Chen only felt a shock in his body. Inside his dantian, something seemed to have broken through. The originally small dantian actually became bigger. If his dantian was like a lake before, then it was now like a vast river, incomparably vast. Xiao Chen was shocked. Is this the foundation building stage? Because he could feel that this was a completely new realm, making him feel like a dragon rising to the heavens. He had suddenly broken free of the shackles, and his strength seemed to have soared by more than one level. Just as Xiao Chen wanted to continue absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to consolidate his foundation building stage, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in front of him began to dissipate. The figure also felt the change in Xiao Chen's physique, so he quickly withdrew the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. This is 2F** King fraudulent. The figure was about to cry. In just a short while, Xiao Chen had consumed a few hundred spiritual stones. Energy should not be consumed in this way. He could only collect 2 spiritual stones for each person who came in. The stock that he had accumulated for a long time was wasted by this kid. This F** King garbage physique actually used so many spiritual stones to cleanse the marrow and bones. Too garbage, really too garbage. The figure cursed in his heart but did not dare to show it. He continued to practice his martial arts skills. Xiao Chen also knew that enough was enough. Although he felt a little regretful, he still stood up and said, "Hey, why do I feel so relaxed and comfortable? Could it be that I'm a genius and suddenly gained enlightenment again? That must be it. Waha, I'm too much of a genius." When the figure heard this, he wanted to vomit blood. F** King hell, if you were a genius, then there would be no good-for-nothings. A good-for-nothing, a big piece of trash. He had vaguely scanned Xiao Chen's body just now. This kind of good-for-nothing body could actually cultivate to become a martial master. It was really a miracle. Who knew how many treasures of heaven and earth he had consumed to achieve his current strength? Logically speaking, this kind of garbage physique should not be able to cultivate at all. Even the first level of a martial warrior would be very difficult. However, his thinking was not wrong. From the perspective of a martial cultivator or a demonic cultivator, Xiao Chen was indeed a good-for-nothing. If he did not cultivate, he would really be a good-for-nothing. Xiao Chen activated a fireball technique and was immediately overjoyed. The difference between the qi refinement stage and the qi refinement stage was like night and day. Now Xiao Chen felt that his fireball technique was enough to burn a 3rd or 4th layer martial master to death. Hey, but why is this martial arts skills improvement so limited? It doesn't feel like it's improving as fast as the dark flame palm. But this is my main martial arts skill. What's going on? Xiao Chen said with some puzzlement. I have to go out and ask the others to see if they are also like this. If some of their martial arts can't be improved so much, I have to exchange pointers with them. After Xiao Chen said this, although the figure was still brandishing his saber, It was obvious that a powerful rage was being emitted from the figure's body. However, it was very well concealed. Xiaoqin secretly laughed. It seemed that this figure was very afraid of him communicating with others. However, this made Xiaoqin very puzzled. After so long with so many people here, did the others not communicate? In fact, it was understandable. Everyone was very guarded when it came to martial arts cultivation. They would keep their own secrets and no one would share their experience with others. This could be seen from the person who wanted to kill Xiaoqin to silence him. If someone succeeded in comprehending the Tao, they would not easily tell others. This also gave the figure behind the Sand Valley an opportunity. However, he did not expect that there would be such an exception like Xiaoqin. However, in the next moment, the overwhelming spiritual energy swept over again. The figure also clearly discovered that Xiaoqin's body was too trashy and useless. How did this person become a martial master? It was too strange. Just now, so much spiritual energy was thrown over, but it seemed to have little effect. If it was any other martial artist, they would have already been transformed into a peerless genius. When Xiaoqin felt the spiritual energy coming again, he was immediately overjoyed. He quickly sat cross-legged and said, It seems that the comfortable feeling from just now is coming again. I can sit cross-legged on the ground and continue to comprehend the Tao. I am really a genius to be able to find such a convenient method. I don't even need to practice martial arts. The figure was so angry that he cursed in his heart. Mother **Ker, you are a piece of trash that only appears once in 1,000 years. Xiaoqin hurriedly cultivated like crazy. This was a very rich spiritual energy. If he missed this opportunity, there would be no such opportunity. Therefore, Xiaoqin took advantage of the fact that this figure was easy to deceive and began to cultivate like crazy. Xiaoqin, be careful. Don't go too far. Don't expose yourself. The elder heaven ancestor reminded him. I understand. However, this is a good opportunity. If I don't take advantage of it, I really don't know how long I will have to wait. Right now, I don't have any spiritual jades. Cultivation is getting harder and harder. If I don't have any opportunities, I won't be able to advance. Therefore, even if it's risky, I have to give it my all. Xiaoqin said. How could he not know that he was asking a tiger for its skin? However, there was no other way. The temptation of this spiritual energy was too great. The elder heaven ancestor did not say anything else. Anyway, it seemed that there was no danger at the moment. The foundation building realm was completely different from the qi refining realm. Xiaoqin felt that his dantian was very big. No matter how much he absorbed the spiritual energy, it was still not enough. His strength was also increasing very slowly. Even though Xiaoqin had already prepared himself mentally, he still felt helpless about this situation. It was really too slow. If it was like this in such a dense spiritual energy, how difficult would it be to reach the peak of the first level of foundation building? Under Xiaoqin's frenzied absorption, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in front of him became thinner and thinner. The figure seemed to have noticed this as well. Left with no other choice, he replenished Xiaoqin's spiritual energy. Xiaoqin did not care about him. He continued to absorb spiritual energy like crazy. The spiritual energy flowed into his body. Seeing that it was about to be used up, Xiaoqin wondered if the figure would replenish more spiritual energy for him. However, Xiaoqin was disappointed. His method of wasting spiritual energy was so wasteful that even the figure could not take it. The figure seemed to let out a low growl. He felt a little heartache and unwillingness, so he did not continue to replenish spiritual energy for Xiaoqin. The figure was about to go crazy from anger. This person's aptitude was so bad. Why did he enter the Tao Comprehension Sand Valley? He should just be an ordinary person. Which sect was this disciple from? Which sect would accept this kind of trash? He checked and found that Xiaoqin's constitution had indeed improved a little, but not much. What he didn't know was that Xiaoqin had already used large amounts of medicine to temper his body. The change in his constitution now was only a negligible effect brought about by the increase in strength. Xiaoqin knew that it was about time, so he stood up and activated a fireball technique. He then said in surprise, that's great. My technique has finally improved. Then I have to get out of here. There's no point in staying here. The figure heaved a sigh of relief, but he cursed in his heart. Damn it, what did you come here for? Did you have nothing better to do? Xiaoqin returned to reality and stood up. He saw that not far away, Sun Maoguang and Xiao Xiaobai were still comprehending, but Xiaoqin couldn't care less about them. He had to leave now. If he caused more trouble, the mastermind of the Sand Valley would explode. Xiaoqin didn't hesitate and turned to leave, quickly heading to the other side of the Sand Valley. This time he was alone and did not travel with anyone else. Hence, Xiao Chen was able to travel faster. When the figure saw Xiao Chen's speed, he heaved a sigh of relief. So he was a speed-type fighter. However, seeing that his skills were quite solid, he reckoned that he would be of great help to him. In that case, the spiritual chi he had used earlier was not wasted. In any case, wool comes from sheep. With that thought, the figure felt a little better and continued to scam others. He didn't care about Xiao Chen anymore. Now that he was there, he would naturally have to work for him. Chapter 635. Although he walked faster than when he came, Xiao Chen still walked for a few days before he vaguely saw a plaza-like place not far away. There were many people on the plaza-like place, which made Xiao Chen slightly stunned. Wasn't this the exit? Why were there so many people? What were these people doing here instead of leaving? Xiao Chen quickened his pace, but he couldn't see the situation in front clearly because it was densely packed with people. He could only find a person on the periphery and ask, "Brother, may I ask, what is this? Isn't this the exit? Why aren't you leaving?" "Leaving? Are you new here?" The person was stunned at first, then he suddenly asked, "Yes, I just succeeded in Tao Enlightenment, so I came over. However, I heard that this is the exit, why can't I get out?" Xiao Chen asked curiously. "Don't mention it, there is a formation here. All of us are taking turns to attack the formation. I heard that only by breaking the formation can we get out." The person wiped the sweat on his forehead and said to Xiao Chen, "Come in queue with me. Wait for the next round of attacks." "What do you mean? So many people haven't broken the formation?" Xiao Chen was surprised. "Yes, it hasn't been broken since the beginning, so no one has gotten out." The person said gloomily, "I've been here for half a year." "What?" Xiao Chen was shocked. "Half a year? Didn't that mean that after the people of Tao Enlightenment Sand Valley came, no one left? Even if they succeeded in Tao Enlightenment, they were all gathered here to break some formation." "Sai, it's nothing to fuss about. I was also shocked when I first came, but I slowly got used to it. What else can we do if we don't break the formation?" The person looked at Xiao Chen's expression and said disapprovingly, "In a while, when it's our turn, we'll use all our strength to attack the formation." "All our strength? Don't tell me that no one is hiding it?" Xiao Chen realized that everyone was queuing up, and there were quite a number of people standing behind him. However, they were all orderly, standing in a circle, not fighting or fighting. Hiding what? Who didn't want to go out? Furthermore, it is not too tiring to use martial techniques here. After using all my strength once, I will be able to recover my strength in no time. The man said, "I have nothing to do anyway. It's better for me to keep using martial arts to attack the formation." "Then why didn't you keep attacking? Why didn't you come down?" Xiao Chen asked. "That won't do. Won't that be a waste of time? We've agreed that we'll go round by round. Each wave of people will go up and attack once and then come down. We'll line up at the back and recover our stamina. The next wave of people will go up and attack. This way we'll be able to unleash the greatest attack power." The man explained, "If I were to keep attacking there, no one would be willing to do so." "Is that so?" "From what I can see, there are some people resting nearby." Xiao Chen pointed at a spot not too far away. There were several cultivators resting at the edge of the square. Their attack power is too weak and they were mocked by others, so they were embarrassed to come up. Also, they felt bored, so they went to stay for a while and came back later. That person said, "Otherwise, who wouldn't want to attack the formation? Everyone has succeeded in comprehending the Tao, and is looking for a place to display it." That person said. Xiao Chen was somewhat speechless. It turned out that they were not slacking off. The rules here were somewhat strange. After a while, it was Xiao Chen's group's turn. Xiao Chen and that person went up. However, Xiao Chen did not use the fireball technique. Instead, he used the dark flame palm. In front of everyone, there was a cylindrical ice crystal that looked like a crystal. It was impossible to see inside. This pillar flickered with a dazzling silver light, just like an ice lantern. It was very beautiful. Xiao Chen saw that everyone was attacking this pillar with all their might. Perhaps this was the so-called formation. Xiao Chen also slapped it with his palm. However, after he finished, before he could carefully admire it, he heard the others shout, "Let's retreat, next wave." Before Xiao Chen could react, he was pulled to the side by that person, making room for the people behind him. "I'm going to rest for a while. You go line up first," Xiao Chen said after being pulled out. "Oh, up to you." That person shook his head as if he was looking down on Xiao Chen. "You can't even make one move and you still want to rest. Isn't this too weak? Right now you might think that you are slacking off. After a long time you will know how boring it is to sit there. People who have just arrived are all like this. When they are bored, they will discover that attacking this formation is the best way to play. It's just like playing a game where everyone is fighting the world boss together. At this moment, Xiaoqin was very calm. He walked to the side and found a place to sit down. He felt that this sand valley was filled with strangeness. Previously, he could already conclude that there was someone controlling the sand valley from behind. Then, was there some premeditated plan to attack this cylindrical ice crystal? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. After all, if this sand valley was really the so-called Tao Comprehension Sand Valley, then why was it so easy to enter as long as one had spirit stones, but it was as difficult as ascending to heaven when one wanted to leave? So many martial masters were attacking this cylindrical ice crystal, but there was no effect at all. That person had been attacking it for half a year. These people had been attacking it repeatedly, but they still didn't succeed. This didn't make any sense. In theory, if this sand valley did not have any ill intentions, then one could enter and leave. But from the looks of the current situation, if only one person entered, how could he break the array? Then wouldn't he die of old age here? With so many people unable to break the array, one person would not be able to leave in his lifetime. Unreasonable, absolutely unreasonable. Xiaoqin did not know if the others had thought of this point, or if they had thought of it, there was no other way. Perhaps in their opinion, breaking the array was the only way. But would breaking the cylindrical ice crystal really allow one to leave? If not for his previous experience, Xiaoqin might have believed it. But now Xiaoqin did not believe that the person behind the sand valley was so kind. No matter how he looked at it, Xiaoqin felt that he was filled with malice. He made everyone feel that they had gained enlightenment and improved their martial skills. Then he made everyone hold on to hope and work hard to attack the cylindrical ice crystal. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what do you think? Xiaoqin asked. I don't know for the time being, but I think you can try to communicate with that cylindrical ice crystal and see if there is any effect. Elder Heaven Ancestor thought for a moment and suggested. All right. Xiaoqin tried to sit cross-legged on the ground and began to communicate with the cylindrical ice crystal, just like how he communicated with the crack. Sure enough, not long after, Xiaoqin felt a trace of aura coming from the cylindrical ice crystal. Xiaoqin entered another thought and saw that it was the same person from before. He was holding a large saber and slashed at the cylindrical ice crystal. The cylindrical ice crystal shattered and this person was instantly teleported out of the sand valley. If he had not sensed this scene, it would have been fine. But now that he had, Xiaoqin was 100% sure that breaking the cylindrical ice crystal was definitely not a good thing. That person had given such a strong hint. Others would definitely believe it, but Xiaoqin did not believe it. Xiaoqin thought for a moment and decided to give it another try. Then he carefully observed the cylindrical ice crystal to see if there was any problem. Standing at the back of the queue, he just happened to see that person attack again. Seeing Xiaoqin coming over, he couldn't help but laugh. How is it? Didn't I say it? You sitting on the side will get bored very quickly. That's not being lazy, it's just being bored to death. All right. Xiaoqin smiled. Oh right, those who have just entered the sand valley, what if they come here? Oh, those who can't come without successfully comprehending the Tao, there will be a barrier here. You can only see the end of the sand valley, you can't come over. That person said, I went the wrong way before. So that's how it is. Xiaoqin nodded his head. After a while, it was Xiaoqin's turn to attack that person again. This time Xiaoqin used the fireball technique. A fireball hit the cylindrical ice crystal. Boom! The cylindrical ice crystal was shaken by Xiaoqin's attack. It shook twice on the spot, and the surface, after being roasted by the Samadhi true fire, caved in a large area. Although the fireball was extinguished in the end, this move was much stronger than the others' attacks. Everyone looked at Xiaoqin with some shock and some surprise. This person was so powerful. They had attacked for so long, but the effect was minimal. This person had caved in with one move? However, Xiaoqin didn't care about this. He could clearly feel that there was an excited and joyful aura coming from the cylindrical ice crystal. It seemed that he was very happy that Xiaoqin could cause such great damage to it. And at this moment, Xiaoqin felt that there seemed to be a black shadow in the cylindrical ice crystal, and this black shadow seemed to be the figure that he saw in his comprehension. That guy, is he inside? Young hero, you're too awesome. Continue activating your martial arts. The cultivators at the back saw that Xiaoqin was so powerful, so they didn't rush to replace him. Instead, they all said to Xiaoqin, Xiao Qin naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to continue activating his martial arts. His intuition told him that if he really broke the cylindrical ice crystal, it wouldn't end well for him. So he smiled bitterly and said, "This won't do. This move of mine has exhausted all my strength. I need to rest and recover." "Oh, so that's how it is. Then hurry up and rest." The crowd didn't suspect anything. After all, the power of this unique skill was shocking. It was normal for Xiao Qin to rest for a while. Thus Xiao Qin walked to the side to rest. The people behind him also replaced him and continued to attack the cylindrical ice crystal. "Elder Heaven Ancestor, do you feel anything?" Xiao Qin asked. "There's something inside the cylindrical ice crystal. It seems to be a primordial spirit." Elder Heaven Ancestor said slowly, "It's a powerful existence. Even I feel a little apprehensive when I sense its aura." "Oh?" Xiao Qin was slightly shocked. There was a primordial spirit inside the cylindrical ice crystal? Did that mean that it was the mastermind that controlled the entire Dao Enlightenment Sand Valley? Chapter 636. Letting him out is definitely not a good thing. Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said, "I have roughly figured it out. This primordial spirit controls the entire Sand Valley. Those illusions of martial skill advancement are also created by this primordial spirit." "That's right, I know, that's exactly it." Xiao Qin nodded. "If that's the case, if we break the cylindrical ice crystal, then wouldn't the primordial spirit come out?" "That should be the case," Elder Heaven Ancestor said. "So that's how it is. This sinister fellow." Xiao Qin took a deep breath. Fortunately, he had not foolishly gone up and bombarded the place. Otherwise, he would have been screwed if he had really gotten that primordial spirit out. But why did he have to create the illusion of comprehending Dao? This is the Dao Enlightenment Sand Valley. If everyone attacked this cylindrical ice crystal the moment they came in, let's not talk about whether they could use their full strength. Even if they could, I feel that they wouldn't be as enthusiastic as they are now. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, "If my guess is correct, there must be other ways to leave this Dao Enlightenment Sand Valley. It's just that under the strong hint of the primordial spirit, everyone felt that breaking the cylindrical ice crystal was the only way to leave. If everyone succeeded in Dao Enlightenment, they would be convinced by the figure. If my guess is correct, many people here should have also communicated with the cylindrical ice crystal and received the revelation that as long as they broke the cylindrical ice crystal, they would be able to leave. Because of the advancement of martial skills, they have no doubt that if there were no such illusions, even if someone attacked, there would be someone who would find another way to leave. Once someone succeeds, the primordial spirit will never be able to escape the restraints of this cylindrical ice crystal. So that's how it is. This old fellow is quite sinister." Xiao Qin thought for a moment and said, "Watch how I take care of him." "What are you going to do?" Elder Heaven Ancestor was stunned. Now that we have the great devil, we lack the second devil. And little devil, do you want to find a playmate?" Xiao Qin asked with a sinister smile. That's possible," and little demon said. Xiao Qin stretched his body and once again began to communicate with the cylindrical ice crystal. This time he very quickly entered that thought. Clearly, the primordial spirit was even more anxious than him. As soon as he entered, his primordial spirit kept hinting that he would be able to leave this place after breaking the cylindrical ice crystal. That figure slashed at the cylindrical ice crystal again and again. Xiao Qin, on the other hand, was neither too fast nor too slow. He frowned and said weakly, "Sigh, that move just now was a bit too big. I almost collapsed. Looks like it's still better for me to use the dark flame palm. This fireball martial skill can easily cause me to collapse and die." After hearing Xiao Qin's words, the figure was obviously a little anxious. How could he do that? The dark flame palm didn't cause any damage to the cylindrical ice crystal, but the fireball spell was different. It could burn a big hole in the cylindrical ice crystal. Therefore, in a moment of desperation, the silhouette began to hint. He threw the knife away and began to throw fireballs at the ice crystal. After a few fireballs, the cylindrical ice crystal shattered. "Oh? I realized that if I use the fireball technique to attack, I will be able to leave quickly?" Xiao Qin scratched his head and said to himself. When the silhouette heard this, he was so happy that he almost nodded in agreement. However, Xiao Qin's following words almost made him vomit blood. But my body is simply too weak. I can't even activate one move. My kidney is weak." Xiao Qin said with some depression. "It seems that I have to eat a few big kidneys after I go back." The silhouette was about to curse. "What the **CK are you trying to do? Your garbage physique is useless no matter what you eat. What the F asterisk CK, what do you want to do, you weakling? Xiao Qin shook his head and said, Aya, if it's like before, I can feel my stamina replenishing as soon as I meditate, that'll be great. At that time, my energy will be beyond my imagination. The silhouette clenched his teeth and gathered a lot of spiritual energy around Xiao Qian's body. He was thinking, F asterisk CK, when I come out in a moment, the first thing I will do is to kill this troublesome trash. It's almost the same as being troublesome for your mother. Not bad, just like this. It's so cool. Xiao Qin shouted in comfort, don't stop, don't stop. The silhouette's whole body trembled a little. F asterisk CK, are you visiting a brothel? Still don't stop, this is spiritual energy. Xiao Qin began to crazily absorb the spiritual energy again. He absorbed as much as he could. It was really cool. He found that this silhouette was really easy to fool. He didn't know how he fooled so many people. The Elder Heaven Ancestor was also a little speechless. This Xiao Qin was really a bit of a scammer. But thinking about this guy's character, it was not strange. Xiao Qin specialized in scamming his enemies for fun. The silhouette felt that it was about time, so he collected the spiritual energy and continued to hint to Xiao Qin that he should quickly go out and make his move. Aya, this body of mine, although it's a little better, but I didn't take medicine today, I feel so cute. Xiao Qin stood up and said to himself, AI, my aptitude is poor. I have no choice but to be a medicine pot. If I don't take medicine, my whole body will feel uncomfortable and my legs will cramp. I can't use any strength at all. I left in a hurry and forgot to bring medicine. Medicine. The silhouette was stunned. Why does this guy still need to take medicine? Is he sick? But after hearing his words, he immediately understood. This kid's aptitude was trash. It was estimated that the reason he could cultivate to the level of martial master was because of the accumulation of medicine. In that case, this guy must be a second-generation cultivator of some big sect. I'm afraid he is the descendant of the sect leader or the great elder. Otherwise, how could such a trash aptitude be cultivated into a martial master? How many medicinal ingredients would be wasted? AI, if only I have heavenly beard grass, 9 heaven velvet. Xiao Qin listed the names of a bunch of medicinal ingredients and said, with these, I can continuously use big moves after taking them. The silhouette was not stupid. He was a little puzzled before, but when he heard Xiao Qin ask for things, he became a little suspicious. Even if a normal person needed medicinal ingredients, they would not be able to name all the medicinal ingredients. Who was he talking to? The silhouette now felt that Xiao Qin had discovered him and came to ask him for these medicinal ingredients? But if someone said that Xiao Qin with his trash aptitude could discover him, he also did not believe it. How could a trash like him sense his existence? Moreover, things like primordial spirit were rare. How could this kid know about it? Thinking of this, the silhouette felt that he might be thinking too much. The medicinal ingredients that Xiao Qin wanted were very common, so he hinted. He first walked to a corner of the square, then dug up the yellow sand in the corner of the square. He took out a box and opened it. It was filled with all kinds of treasures. Of course, in order to not arouse Xiao Qin's suspicion, he deliberately added some other materials. To make it more realistic, he even put in 2 pieces of spiritual jade. The silhouette actually had a lot of property. These things that Xiao Qin wanted were really nothing. In his opinion, they were all trash. Oh my god, there are treasures here? Xiao Qin was shocked. That's great, I'll go treasure hunting. Looking at Xiao Qin's silly look, the silhouette heaved a sigh of relief. This was a simple-minded person. He really thought too much. Xiao Qin returned to reality from his thoughts. Then, he quickly found the edge of the sand valley according to the direction that the silhouette had pointed out before and began to dig. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Xiao Qin to dig out a treasure chest. Although Xiao Qin looked happy on the surface, he was shocked in his heart. It seemed that the person behind the scenes' control over the sand valley was far beyond Xiao Qin's imagination. He didn't think that these things were buried in advance because the things inside were what Xiao Qin needed. How could the silhouette have known before? Although most of the people were attacking the cylindrical ice crystal in full swing, some people noticed Xiao Qin. When they saw that he had dug out the treasure, they all gathered around. However, Xiao Qin had already put away the spiritual jades without batting an eyelid. The remaining things were some common goods. What kind of trash is this? The first cultivator who came to take a look took a look and turned away in disgust. The remaining people came to take a look out of curiosity and shook their heads. However, the others who didn't look also left. If it was good stuff, everyone wouldn't have such a reaction. Everyone please make way. I'm going to use some materials to activate my big move now. Xiao Qin hugged the box, squeezed through the crowd and ran to the cylindrical ice crystal. Being pushed away, some cultivators were naturally unhappy. However, when they saw that it was Xiaoqin, the young hero who had just dented the cylindrical ice crystal, they all took the initiative to make way. After all, they had been attacking for a long time without any effect. The other person had dented the cylindrical ice crystal with one move, so there must be something special about him. Since this person had come, they would let him go first. Therefore, very soon Xiaoqin squeezed to the side of the cylindrical ice crystal. Those who were ready to attack also made way to give Xiaoqin a chance to display his skills. Xiaoqin began to follow the instructions of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. He used the materials to arrange a small formation and began to use the Samadhi True Fire to refine the cylindrical ice crystal. He was using the method of refining the Ghost Talisman Devil, so the preparation work was more troublesome. However, the other cultivators couldn't understand it. They all thought that Xiaoqin was going to activate his big move. However, even if they couldn't understand it, it didn't mean that everyone else couldn't understand it. There was indeed someone who understood it, and that was the primordial spirit figure inside the cylindrical ice crystal. What is this kid doing? Why does it feel like what he is doing is somewhat familiar? Where have I seen it before? The primordial spirit figure thought it was a little strange. However, it had been too long and he couldn't remember it. This kid probably knows some crooked ways to help me break the cylindrical ice crystal, right? The primordial spirit figure thought, and his heart was happy. He was going to get out soon. This was really great. This feeling of being bound was simply too much. In a flash, thousands of years had passed and he was finally going to be free. Wow. Hey. Something doesn't seem right. After the primordial spirit figure was happy, he looked at Xiaoqin, but found that what he was doing was not just to break the cylindrical ice crystal. Chapter 637. Although the cylindrical ice crystal began to melt under the influence of the fireball spell, he still felt that there was an indescribable strangeness. Since when could this kid use the fireball technique consecutively? It looked like he was being roasted by fire. Did this person's aptitude become better? Could it be that he used up all the materials and suddenly exploded? No, those materials were not used at all. They were piled up around the cylindrical ice crystal in a certain pattern. What did this mean? Could it be that this could provide him with energy so that he could use the fireball technique continuously? Oh my god. That primordial spirit figure was shocked. He was done for. Wasn't this a formation? He was not very good at formations when he was alive, and it was a long time ago. He couldn't remember it for a while. Until now, he finally saw clearly that Xiaoqin had set up a simple formation. Although he didn't know how to set up this formation, he had seen others set it up before. This was a quite vicious formation. It was a formation to refine the Ghost Talisman Devil. This time he was scared out of his wits. He carefully examined Xiaoqin again. Oh my god, this is not a martial cultivator or a devil cultivator at all. This is AF** King cultivator. How could there be a cultivator in this era? He took a closer look. F***CK, he's a cultivator at the Foundation establishment stage. If it was when he was alive, a small cultivator at the Foundation establishment stage would be in existence that could be pinched to death in minutes. But it was not possible now. Not to mention that he was sealed in the cylindrical ice crystal. Even if he came out, he would not be a match for him. Unless he used a special method to possess him, or ran away first and came back to settle the score after his cultivation was done. But the key problem was that this kid wanted to refine the Ghost Talisman Devil. Once the cylindrical ice crystal shattered, it would be the time for him to be refined. Damn it, the primordial spirit figure finally figured it out. Previously, this kid was lying to him. This kid's aptitude was not trash at all. He had the aptitude to be a cultivator. However, he subconsciously thought that there was absolutely no cultivator in this era, and he didn't think in that direction at all. And the more heaven-defying a cultivator's aptitude was, the more they couldn't cultivate into a martial cultivator or a demonic cultivator, because those were two different paths. He checked Xiaoqin's aptitude and felt that he was trash. Then he kept satisfying Xiaoqin's wishes. Now, it seemed that all his efforts had gone to this kid. He wanted the spiritual chi for cultivation, and he wanted these materials to refine himself into a Ghost Talisman Devil. Thinking of this, the essence spirit figure felt that he absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He hurriedly communicated with Xiaoqin's mind. In fact, Xiaoqin was also waiting to communicate. Feeling a strong mental fluctuation, Xiaoqin naturally stopped his work and began to communicate with this mental fluctuation. Kid, you're AF** King cultivator, aren't you? This time, the figure didn't disguise himself with Xiaoqin at all. As soon as he saw Xiaoqin come in, he glared at him and shouted. Oh, what do you mean by a cultivator? Xiao Chen blinked his eyes innocently and looked as if he would beat him to death if he didn't accept it. You. The figure really couldn't do anything to Xiao Chen. This Tao Enlightenment Sand Valley was a territory that he had refined using all his Taoist techniques. However, he could only use his mind to control a small part of things. His body was still sealed in the cylindrical ice crystal, so he couldn't use his strength at all. What me? Xiao Chen said, didn't you put on quite a good act just now? Did you pretend to be some martial intent? Why can you suddenly speak? Have you evolved into a spirit? The figure was a little angry. Are you trying to refine me into a ghost talisman devil? Yes. Xiao Chen said directly without hiding anything. You're too wicked. The figure looked at Xiao Chen's shameless look and was extremely angry. You used my spiritual qi and asked for my materials. Is this how you repay me? Hey? What you said is so strange. You tricked us to come here to work for you. You wanted to open your seal and you even pretended to improve our martial skills. What do you say? Xiao Chen scratched his head and asked. This. The figure was a little stunned when he heard Xiao Chen's words. He always thought that it was Xiao Chen's fault, but he didn't think that it was all because of him. He snorted and said, What do you want? I don't want anything. Actually, I'm a very easy person to talk to. I already have a ghost talisman devil, so it doesn't matter if I have you or not. However, I can't get out now, so I'll reluctantly refine you. Xiao Chen spread out his hands with a helpless expression. How can you stop? The figure looked at Xiao Chen and asked angrily. I've already said that you can let us go. Can't you just let us go? Xiao Chen said. Well, if you open my seal and don't refine me into a ghost talisman devil, I can promise you that I'll let you go. The figure said. Oh, then I'd better refine you. Xiao Chen said, I spent so much effort to open your seal. Is there something wrong with me? I'll give you something good. The figure rolled his eyes and said, It's something good for cultivators. What is it? Xiao Chen was interested. Let me go first and I'll tell you. The figure looked at Xiao Chen treacherously and smiled. Oh, then I'll refine you into a ghost talisman devil, and you'll tell me all your secrets. Xiao Chen said directly, Okay, don't bother me. I'm going to start. Hey, don't. The figure didn't expect that Xiao Chen wouldn't be tempted at all. He had no choice but to say, Then what do you want me to do? Give me those good things and tell me how to get out of here. Xiao Chen did not waste any words. The reason why he had patiently talked so much with this primordial spirit was because Xiao Chen did not have absolute confidence that he could refine this primordial spirit. This was because even the Sky Elder had said that he did not have the confidence to deal with it. Therefore Xiao Chen did not want to take the risk. If the refinement failed and this primordial spirit escaped, then he would be in trouble in the future. Humph, do you really think that I can't deal with you? I created this sand valley and I can control everything here at any time. After listening to Xiao Chen's conditions, the figure directly threatened him angrily, I can decide whether you live or die. Do you believe me? Oh, okay, then let's see who can refine who first. Xiao Chen didn't care at all. If the spirit had a way, it would have already made a move. Why would it wait until now to talk terms with him? You. The spirit saw that Xiao Chen was simply stubborn. After hesitating for a moment, he had no choice but to compromise. Okay. I promise you I'll tell you how to leave. The spirit thought that although Xiao Chen had left and given him the good things, it was still better than being refined into a ghost talisman devil. After all, he didn't know how good Xiao Chen's technique was, so he didn't dare to take the risk. Although Xiao Chen's strength was low, his formation and refining technique were not bad. What if he could refine it? Okay. Xiao Chen said, leave the good things here first. I'll come back later to get them. Don't let others see it. No problem, put it in the same place as before. The spirit said. Then how do we get out? Xiao Chen asked. Here there is a hidden door. As long as you continue to walk forward, you can get out. As the primordial spirit spoke, it went to demonstrate to Xiao Chen. It was in a hidden corner and it did not look like there was anything wrong with it. Xiao Chen even had to jump 3 feet high before he could jump up. That place was no different from the ordinary side walls of the Sand Valley, but it allowed people to enter. After Xiao Chen wrote it down, he nodded, stood up and said to everyone, Okay, I've cracked it. I know how to get out. How do we get out? Everyone asked quickly after listening. Can we get out without breaking this cylindrical ice crystal? Someone asked in disbelief. Everyone follow me. Xiao Chen didn't care whether everyone could listen or not. He went directly to the place where the spirit had demonstrated before. Then he jumped and stood on the side wall. He walked forward and said as he walked, "From here we can get out." As he spoke, Xiaoqin took a step forward and quickly ran out. He was a cultivator, so his speed was extremely fast. He felt that he was running on a slope, but he could not see his surroundings clearly. It was as if his surroundings were filled with quicksand, but he could still pass through it. After running for about 10 minutes, Xiaoqin came out of the desert, but when he looked down there was nothing under his feet. I'm afraid this is also a formation, an irreversible formation. Nearby is the teleportation formation that Xiaoqin came from before. It seems that the spirit didn't lie. Xiaoqin could be sure that the spirit was afraid of him, so what it said was the truth. However, Xiaoqin didn't wait here for the others to come out. He didn't know if he would be targeted. After all, his performance inside was more dazzling. In the Sand Valley, everyone worked together, so they didn't have any other thoughts. If these people came out and asked Xiaoqin all sorts of questions or even harbored bad intentions, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Xiaoqin quickly took out 10 spirit stones from his backpack and placed them on the teleportation formation. Then he stood on the teleportation formation. The next moment he was teleported back to the Sand Valley again. The remaining people in the Sand Valley saw that Xiaoqin didn't come back for a long time. It was obvious that he had really left. Some people imitated him and began to try. When one went in, the second one followed. Then everyone left the Sand Valley one by one. We can really get out from here. How did that kid find out? The people who came out couldn't help but think of Xiaoqin. Where's the kid from before? Why isn't he here? I still want to ask him why his martial arts are so powerful. This was a martial cultivator at the 10th level of the martial master realm. He seems to have left, there's no one here. Another demonic cultivator at the 10th level of the martial master realm said. Chapter 638. Forget it, everyone disperse. The 10th layer martial master waved his hand and said, "That's right, let's go our separate ways." The devil master of the 10th layer also said loudly. When the rest of the people who came out heard the words of the two of them, they didn't say much and dispersed one after another. Some of them had already been in the Sand Valley for more than a year. At this moment, they naturally had to quickly contact their families or sections. However, no one tried to activate their martial skills again. They all left with tacit understanding. Perhaps everyone knew that if they were to fight, it would turn into a chaotic battle. Perhaps no one would be able to benefit from it. As for the two 10th layer martial masters, they clearly understood this logic. Therefore, they called out to everyone and persuaded everyone to leave first. At this moment, Xiaoqin had already returned. He began to madly rush in the direction of the cylindrical ice crystal. Firstly, it was to escape from the people outside. Secondly, it was to retrieve the treasures. He believed that after these people left, the news that the Sand Valley was a lie would definitely spread. At that time, no one would come again. However, there were still some people left in the Sand Valley who had not succeeded in comprehending the Tao. Xiaoqin couldn't care less. Even if Xiaoqin told them that this place was fake, they might not believe him. They would definitely think that Xiaoqin was selfish. He had succeeded in comprehending the Tao, but he didn't want others to succeed as well. Therefore, rather than causing trouble, it was better to let nature take its course. However, it was a pity for his companions from before. After returning to the cylindrical ice crystal, Xiaoqin discovered that the Sand Valley Plaza, which was originally the pinnacle of life, had become empty and very quiet. At this moment, Xiaoqin didn't care about anything. He directly asked, "Have the treasures been buried?" "Yes, they're all buried." The primordial spirit's voice sounded. "It seems that you're still keeping your word. Then I won't continue refining you. Although, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure that I can successfully refine you, I'm almost 90% sure." Xiaoqin said, "Don't use some trash to fool me." "I know." When the primordial spirit heard Xiaoqin's words, he no longer had any doubts. Otherwise, after he had compromised, he would have calmed down and thought about it. Why did Xiaoqin compromise? Obviously, he could refine him into a ghost talisman devil. At that time, perhaps his things would belong to Xiaoqin, and there would be no secrets at all. Wouldn't that be better than now? Moreover, Xiaoqin had the help of the ghost talisman devil. But now that Xiaoqin said this, he understood that Xiaoqin was not 100% sure. This was reasonable, but even if it was only 90%, he did not dare to provoke Xiaoqin. He was afraid that Xiaoqin would directly fight him to the death. Xiaoqin came to the place where he had dug up the treasure and dug out another chest. Opening it, he saw 4 pieces of spirit jades neatly stacked inside. Adding the 2 pieces from before, there were 6 pieces in total. This made Xiaoqin very happy. This was a good thing and Xiaoqin needed it. He did not expect the primordial spirit to really not lie to him. How is it? Not bad, right? The primordial spirit said proudly. So little. Xiaoqin appeared disappointed, but he was overjoyed in his heart. Little? Bullshit, this is my savings for many years. Some people use spirit jades as spirit stones to activate the teleportation formation, but this kind of people are not common. I only collected these and I gave them all to you. I have no use for it. The primordial spirit said angrily, I didn't know that you only had 90% confidence in refining me, so I can't lie to you. Then you didn't have any stock before? Xiaoqin could not help but ask. The previous stock is arranged in this sand valley, where is it? The primordial spirit said helplessly, I didn't expect that because of you, all my previous efforts would be wasted. I guess no one will come here in the future. That's not my problem, you continue to stay here and play by yourself, I'm leaving, bye-bye. Xiaoqin put away the spirit jades then jumped and ran outside. Xiaoqin did not think that there would be anyone waiting outside, because no one knew that he would return, so there was no point in waiting outside. Sure enough, as Xiaoqin guessed when he went out, there was no one outside. Xiaoqin breathed a sigh of relief and walked forward. He did not stay in the vicinity, but returned to the ruins of the Paoli clan's cultivation city. Although the energy stones were in his hands, the purpose of Xiaoqin's trip was to find the extraterrestrial ink meteorite, not only to find it for Xia Zhili, but also for Xiaoqin himself. This heavenly treasure can help a martial master level expert to break through to the general level, then can I also use it to break through to the gold core stage? Xiaoqin already knew that after the foundation establishment stage was the gold core stage, which was equivalent to the general level of martial cultivators and devil cultivators. Of course, it was only on paper, but in a real fight, a general of the same level was absolutely not a match for a cultivator. Looking at the 4 words Bubbly Clan written on the castle, Xiaoqin hesitated as to whether or not he should enter. After all, the map in his hand stopped here. There was no detailed map inside. If he wanted to enter, he would have to rely on himself. Friend, are you planning to go to the ruins of the Paoli clan? At this time, a voice sounded from afar. Xiaoqin saw a person rushing over. The reason why it was said to be rushing was because this person was driving a convertible. Xiaoqin was a little puzzled. How did this person drive in? Is there another way to enter the Hakanamada desert? He paid a high price to come in, but this person did not let him drive. Could it be that this person spent more money? Yes, you are. Xiaoqin was already standing next to the ruins. If he said no, he would be lying, so he might as well admit it. I'm also here to explore, the person said. Let me introduce myself, I'm Tagan Shanxiong. Hello. Xiaoqin nodded, waiting for him to continue. You're here for the spirit stones? Tagan Shanxiong asked, his eyes turning. Yes. Xiaoqin nodded again. Did you get it? Tagan Shanxiong asked. Not yet. Xiaoqin shook his head. Then we can go together, the person said. You're a martial master, right? Entering the ruins requires the cooperation of a few people. You can't go in alone, but if you're willing we can work together. What's in it for me? Xiaoqin felt that this person was too enthusiastic, but thinking of Maoguang before, he didn't suspect much. He just asked, if we find the spirit stones in the ruins, how about we give them to you first? The person said, of course, but the other things will belong to us. Oh, do you know that there must be spirit stones in there? Xiaoqin didn't argue with him. His purpose here was the outer sky ink meteorite, but he couldn't tell anyone. That's not necessarily true, but if there isn't, as a reward, each of us will give you some spirit stones and help you get 10. How about that? The person looked very generous. Forgive me for being blunt, but what are you looking for in the ruins? Xiaoqin asked without batting an eyelid. Oh, we're here to verify something, not to find anything, the person said with a smile. The introduction just now may not have been comprehensive, but let me say it again. I'm from the Wulian archaeology team, you can call me Captain Tagan. We're a group of martial masters with the same hobby of archaeology. We formed an archaeology team and traveled through all kinds of mountain ruins. Wulian archaeology team? Xiaoqin was a little confused after hearing this. There was such an organization? These people were all martial masters, but they still went to archaeology. It was the first time he heard of this. Subconsciously, Xiaoqin felt that this person wasn't very reliable, but since this person said so, he didn't ask any more. He just said, okay, if that's the case then it's fine for me to join. But what if we find other valuable things? According to the rules, of course we'll split it equally. Tagan Shanxiong smiled and said, other than giving you spirit stones first, we'll split the other things equally. If it's more valuable than spirit stones, then we can give you some. That's fair. Xiaoqin nodded. If that's the case, when do we act? Of course, even if our team is temporary, it's very fair, Tagan Shanxiong said. Tagan Shanxiong said, wait a minute, there are still 4 people. When they arrive, the 6 of us will move together. Okay, do you have a map of the ruins? The reason why Xiaoqin agreed to form a team with them was because he didn't have a map of the ruins. If he went in, it was very likely that he would get lost. With these people, it would be better. Yes, but it's only a rough map. It's not very complete. Tagan Shanxiong said, since my teammates haven't come, you can take a look. As he said this, Tagan Shanxiong took out a map and handed it to Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin took it and looked at it. However, the map was really simple. It only had the approximate route and position of the Bubble Li clan's cultivation city. It didn't have the exact location. However, Xiaoqin quickly memorized it. Maybe it would be of great use. Thank you, this map is very rough. I don't understand it. Xiaoqin returned the map to Tagan Shanxiong and said with a smile. Yes, this map is just a reference. We need to use past experience to accurately judge some things. Tagan Shanxiong smiled and said, when the time comes, you will know how wise your choice was. Otherwise, if you go in yourself, you might not be able to find anything. After all, this ruins has been visited many times. It's hard to say what good things are left. Yes, I think so too. Xiaoqin nodded. Not long after, 2 more cars arrived and 4 people got out. Tagan Shanxiong stepped forward and greeted them one by one. Then he said, this is a trial challenger that wants to form a team with us. He wants to go to the ruins to look for spirit stones. Friend, introduce yourself. Chapter 639. I am Xiaoqin, a martial master-level demonic cultivator. I am here on a spirit stone mission. I am very happy to be able to travel with you. I hope you can take care of me. Xiaoqin cupped his fists and said, well said, well said. The others smiled and said, the 4 of us are Captain Tagan's team members. My name is Zhang Zhongyuan, nicknamed Baldy. Friends can call me Brother Baldy. A bald team member said. My name is Jiang Yushui, nicknamed Skinny Jiang. Another team member with a slender body said. Just call me Xiaoqing. This was a man with a gloomy face. He did not look like someone easy to get along with. My name is Xueqian. This was a woman wearing a veil. Xiaoqin could not see her real face, but she gave him a familiar feeling as if he had seen her somewhere before. Xiaoqin nodded and greeted them one by one. Then he said, excuse me, do you often explore together? No, we are all archaeology enthusiasts. When there is a mission, we will gather together. Normally we don't get together. We meet about once a year. Baldy waved his hand and said, we all have our own specialties. Yes, I am in charge of finding the ruins and estimating the value of the ruins. Then we will contact each other on the internet and gather together. The one called Tagan Shanxiong said, we all come from different sects or families. We will not deliberately ask each other's background. For this kind of exploration, the more people there are, the more fun it will be. This time I am inviting you. If you think it is good, you can join us next time. We can form a team to explore other ruins. So that's how it is. Xiaoqin nodded. No wonder the 4 of them didn't come together with Tagan and Shanxiong. It turned out that they came from different places. Yes, how about it? Are you interested? Tagan Shanxiong smiled. I will take a look first. Xiaoqin did not reply immediately. For the time being, Xiaoqin did not know whether this Tagan Shanxiong was a friend or a foe, whether he had good or bad intentions. At the very least, Xiaoqin could not make out any intentions from this person's words. At most, these people wanted to go to the ruins to find something, but they didn't plan to share it with him. They just wanted to give him spirit stones. But this was understandable. No one would be so generous to a stranger. Good, since everyone is here, let's go. Tagan Shanxiong waved his hand and led Xiaoqin and the others into the ruins of the Paoli clan. Inside the ruins, what Xiaoqin saw was even more dilapidated than he had imagined. There were broken walls and ruins everywhere, and the ground was covered in yellow sand. However, from the vaguely majestic buildings, he could tell that this place must have been prosperous once. He didn't know why the Bubbly clan gave up on this place in the end. Was there an accident or something? If it wasn't for an accident, they wouldn't have left important things here when they moved. Although spirit stones were not as valuable as spirit jades, they were still very precious things. Leaving them here for people to search for, it could be seen that the Paoli clan had left in a hurry. Don't touch the things on the ground. At this time, Tagan Shanxiong reminded Xiaoqin, "Don't look at the ground. Sometimes you can see spirit stones, but that's an illusion created by the desert hermit scorpions. Those things are highly toxic and whoever touches them will die. Brother Xiaochang, you must be careful." "I understand." Xiaoqin smiled gratefully. Although he knew this person's warning was still very kind. At this point, Xiaoqin let down his guard a little. However, he didn't completely let it go. The few of them quickly moved forward. Tagan Shanxiong led the way as if he was very familiar with the terrain. He didn't stop at all, nor did he look at the map. This made Xiaoqin a little suspicious. At this thought, Xiaoqin couldn't help but ask, "Captain Tagan, with all due respect, have you been here before?" Tagan Shanxiong was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood what Xiaoqin meant. He paused and said, "Of course I've been here before. As the initiator of the mission, I have to investigate first. This is a necessary condition. Brother Xiaochang, are you suspecting that I have some ulterior motives?" "No, I'm just a little curious." Xiaoqin laughed and said, "I'm alone in an unfamiliar place, so I naturally have to be careful. I hope Captain Tagan won't take offense." "Of course not." Tagan Shanxiong shook his head. Instead, he praised Xiaoqin, "You're right. When you're out alone, there's nothing wrong with being more cautious. When adventuring in a remnant, the most important thing is to be cautious. You can't be reckless. Otherwise, you might lose your life if you're not careful." These words made Xiaoqin feel that Tagan Shanxiong was open and aboveboard. However, Xiaoqin was also puzzled. Why was this group of strangers so good to him? Did they just want him to join their exploration team? But why did they trust a person they met so much? Were they not suspicious of his origins? They didn't even ask a single question? Or was it really as Tagan Shanxiong said, that they didn't even ask about each other's origins? Fortunately, Tagan Shanxiong did not have time to talk to Xiaoqin. After praising him, he continued to hurry forward. Xiaoqin also saw that other than himself, the others seemed to trust Tagan Shanxiong very much. They did not feel that there was anything wrong with rushing. Of course, Xiaoqin had a good impression of Tagan Shanxiong, but it did not mean that he was not on guard at all. However, Xiaoqin did not think that Tagan Shanxiong would covet anything from him. Since he was willing to do the mission for spirit stones, he obviously did not have any good cultivation resources. At the very least, these people would not join forces to rob him. After passing through these ruins, Xiaoqin found that the scene in front of him suddenly changed. It was no longer an endless desert, but some desert plants appeared. Looking ahead, there was even a dense forest. This made Xiaoqin a little surprised. Could there be a dense forest in the desert? Soon, under Tagan Shanxiong's lead, everyone entered the dense forest, but his speed had obviously slowed down. Not only that, after walking for a while, Tagan Shanxiong took out his compass and compared it with the map. His behavior made Xiaoqin breathe a sigh of relief. The previous road was easier to walk, so it was normal to walk fast. Looking at Tagan Shanxiong's behavior in the dense forest, it was obvious that this was his first time here, so he should not have any special intentions. After walking for a few more hours, Tagan Shanxiong stopped and said, "The place we're at now is a secret treasure trove of the Paoli clan. Not many people know about this place. Moreover, the treasures are scattered, so not all of them have been taken away." When Xiaoqin saw Tagan Shanxiong looking at him, he nodded and said, "Do you need me to do anything?" "Yes, Xiaochang, I see that you are a demonic cultivator. This time, we need your help to break the formation of the treasure house," Tagan Shanxiong said. "What do you mean?" Xiaoqin was a little inexplicable. Why did they need him again? Wasn't he just here to be bystanders? Tagan Shanxiong explained to Xiaoqin, "Xiaoqin, through my observation along the way, I know that you are a reliable and trustworthy person, so I will tell you the truth. The reason why I want to rope you in is because you are a demonic cultivator." Xiaoqin said curiously, "You knew that I was a demonic cultivator?" When he heard Xiaoqin's question, Tagan Shanxiong nodded and said, "Yes, I sense the aura of a demonic cultivator on you, and this mission requires the help of a demonic cultivator. The reason I didn't say it clearly before was because we didn't have any trust between us. But after arriving here through my observation, I noticed that you aren't a rash person, and you are very kind as well. You should be a good partner." This person's words were very reasonable, but Xiaoqin's heart trembled. It would be strange if this person could see that I'm a demonic cultivator. I'm not a demonic cultivator at all, I'm a true cultivator. It was possible for this person to be able to discern whether someone was a martial cultivator or a demonic cultivator, but how great was this person's ability to discern that Xiaoqin was a demonic cultivator? He hadn't revealed any strength at all, and he had only introduced himself as a demonic cultivator, yet this person had actually taken advantage of him. But don't forget, this person had first looked for him to cooperate, and only then did he know that he was a demonic cultivator. Moreover, if Xiaoqin didn't appear here, where would he go to find a demonic cultivator? Wouldn't the 5 of them come? Therefore what he said was reasonable, but in reality, it didn't make any sense. However, Xiaoqin pretended not to hear it and instead showed the joy of being valued. He said happily, "Is that so? You still need my help? Along the way, I seem to have been leeching experience, and now there's finally a place for me to be of use. Captain Tagan, just tell me." Originally, we only planned to look for some treasures in the periphery, but the array formation in the periphery is very simple, and I'm afraid that others have already broken it. However, since Brother Xiaochang is a demonic cultivator, we can break some of the more profound array formations now, but there might be some dangers that could lead to injuries. I wonder if Brother Xiaochang dares to attack together? Tagan Shanxiong's words seemed to be an explanation and supplement to the previous sentence. Xiaoqian's heart trembled, but on the surface he smiled and said, "Of course, since I'm here, I naturally have to get some good things. If it's just a few spirit stones, I'd be letting myself down. By the way, I wonder if I have a share?" Although Xiaoqian had begun to suspect Tagan Shanxiong, since there were benefits, he wouldn't miss it. Wealth comes from danger. He felt that these people shouldn't be lying to him. There were indeed treasures here, and they really needed his help to open some array formation. However, the dangers brought about by the array formation might have been downplayed by Tagan Shanxiong. Xiaoqian believed that wealth and danger coexisted, and there was no such thing as reaping without sowing. Chapter 640. Otherwise, if these people wanted to trick him, they could have done it elsewhere. There was no need for them to come here. Very good, young hero Xiao is really young and promising. Your heroic spirit reaches the clouds. Tagan Shanxiong laughed and said, "In that case, I won't hide it from you. In a while we will open the formation. The 5 of us will attack it, but we need a demonic cultivator to help us resist the formation's backlash." The formation's backlash? Xiaoqin frowned. Do I have to resist it? Yes, the formation here is very strange. If there are devil cultivators here, they will simply choose the devil cultivators to suffer from the backlash. As for us, we don't need to be tired of dealing with the backlash of the formation. But you will have to work hard alone. Tagan Shanxiong said, "This formation is very well hidden. No one should have discovered it before, so if we break it, we should be the first to enter. Besides spirit stones, I can give you more of the good stuff inside." Then will I be in danger? Xiaoqin asked. At this point, there definitely won't be any big danger, but there will be small dangers. Tagan Shanxiong said, "If I want to lie to you, I can completely deceive you and let you suffer the formation's backlash. But I'm telling you in advance. You can also see my sincerity. Whether you want to go or not, it's up to you." The more he acted like this, the more a normal person would believe him. However, because Xiaoqian had his suspicions before, he didn't completely believe his words. In Xiaoqian's opinion, perhaps half of what this person said was true, but it wasn't completely true. If he completely believed it, then he would really be a fool. Then why didn't you find a demonic cultivator to help before? Why did you wait until now? Xiaoqian asked with some doubt. Since this formation needed the help of a demonic cultivator, then what did they do before? If they couldn't find a demonic cultivator, Xiaoqian would not believe it. If they could form a team with a random person at the entrance of a cultivation ruin, then how could they not find a reliable candidate before? Was that even possible? Tagan Shanxiong smiled bitterly and said, We didn't even think about breaking that formation. We just wanted to find some formations that had been broken before and see if there were any good things inside. We didn't even consider these unknown formations. After all, even if the formation is broken, there might still be danger in the treasury because danger and benefits coexist. Everyone understands this logic. So you changed your mind when you saw me? Xiaoqian naturally didn't believe this excuse. Of course not. Previously, I met an old acquaintance in the desert. He told me some news. Tagan Shanxiong said, "This old friend of mine is a local tyrant in this area. He has some information that others don't know about. Because he is familiar with me, he told me this information." Oh? What news? After Xiaoqian heard that, he nodded without batting an eyelid. It sounded like breaking the current formation was a last-minute decision. This friend of mine is called Wang Kaichao. He has been doing well in the Hakanamata desert. He is an old adventurer here. Of course he rarely takes risks now. After he has a family, he mainly makes a living by inquiring about and selling information, as well as helping people solve problems. He basically doesn't come to the desert anymore. This time I came early, so I went to Brother Wang's place to sit for a while. That's when I heard this news. In the treasury behind this formation, there is an extraterrestrial ink meteorite. I wonder if young hero Xiao knows about this thing? What? Extraterrestrial ink meteorite. Xiao Qin was a little surprised. He didn't expect Tagan Shanxiong's real goal to be this extraterrestrial ink meteorite. It seemed that the news that Xia Zhili had received was not fake. Now others had also received this news. Yes, young hero Zhao's reaction means that you must know about this thing. If it was an ordinary treasure we might have given up, but this thing is too precious. Tagan Shanxiong said, I also told this news to my companions at the last minute. They are also very supportive of finding a devil cultivator to form a team and break the formation. So that's how it is. No wonder with such a precious treasure, anyone would change their mind at the last minute. Xiao Qin suddenly understood and then said, in that case there is no problem. I am also very interested in this treasure, but if we find it, will I have a share? Of course. Hearing Xiao Qin's question, Tagan Shanxiong quickly nodded and said, everyone who sees it has a share. In addition to the spirit stones that we promised you, we can divide this extraterrestrial ink meteorite equally. However, if there are other things, we will have to subtract the value of the spirit stones and then divide it with you. Alright. This distribution was very fair, so Xiao Qin naturally did not disagree. If he were to look for it himself, he might not even be able to find the extraterrestrial ink meteorite. He would get lost the moment he entered. Alright, now I will start breaking the formation. Tagan Shanxiong said. Alright, what should I do? Xiao Qin asked. There is an eye of the formation here. When we attack the formation will release a backlash force. At this time, young hero Xiao only needs to sit cross-legged on the eye of the formation and use all your strength to resist the backlash attack of the formation, Tagan Shanxiong explained. That's good. Sit on the eye of the formation? Xiao Qin felt that it was a little strange, but he still nodded. He knew nothing about what these people wanted to do. For the sake of the extraterrestrial ink meteorite, he could only take a risk. In any case, it did not matter if he did not understand the formation. There was still the Elder Heaven Ancestor who did. If there were any problems, the Elder Heaven Ancestor would also remind him, so that he would not be at a loss. Baldi, you stand here. Xueqian, you stand here. Tagan Shanxiong made arrangements and gestured for his 4 teammates to stand in suitable positions. Finally he said to Xiao Qin, young hero Xiao, you stand here. That is the eye of the formation. Xiao Qin nodded and walked over. However, when he passed by Xueqian, he heard her whisper, be careful. Xiao Qin found it a little strange. Why did Xueqian remind him to be careful? What did she mean? Along the way he could tell that Xueqian was a very cold woman. She almost never spoke, nor did she say anything. She just walked with everyone. Now that she had suddenly reminded him to be careful, Xiao Qin found it indescribably strange. If he had been a teammate that she had known in the past, there would have been no harm in reminding him. However, Xiao Qin did not know her, yet she had said such a thing. Furthermore, even if they were teammates, Xueqian still behaved very coldly and did not speak much along the way. However, although Xiao Qin was puzzled, he still walked to the eye of the formation without batting an eyelid. He was secretly vigilant. Wait a moment. When I say start, everyone will go all out and use your strongest skills to attack in front of you. Don't hold back. Go all out. Do you understand? Tagan Shanxiong said loudly. Understood. Everyone nodded. Alright, get ready, start. After saying that, Tagan Shanxiong took the lead. A series of banging sounds could be heard. Everyone took out their ultimate skills and attacked the formation in front of them. Although they seemed to be hitting the air, there was actually an invisible barrier in front of them. This was the formation. Xiao Qin had experience in this aspect. Back in the mountains behind the Immortal Resort, he, Clayden, and the others had used a similar method to break the formation of an ancient ruin. However, just as Xiao Qin wanted to ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor if there was any other way to break the formation, he felt a powerful force similar to an electric current surging toward him. Xiao Qin's body quivered and he subconsciously began to circulate the mantra to defend himself. However, as everyone attacked, the force seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. It continuously attacked Xiao Qin, causing him to be overwhelmed. At this moment, Xiao Qin was sweating profusely. He subconsciously wanted to leave the eye of the formation because the force was too strong. Xiao Qin knew that if he did not leave, it was very likely that he would suffer internal injuries. As for killing him, that was also a possibility. However, the next moment, Xiao Qin knew that leaving the eye of the formation was an extravagant hope. Because under the restraint of this force, Xiao Qian's body seemed to have been electrocuted. He could not even move. There was indeed a problem. Xiao Qin was secretly shocked. This Tagan Shanxiong did not have any good intentions. He seemed to be very frank and straightforward, but anyone who resisted the backlash of the eye of the formation would be courting death. And Xiao Qin finally understood what Xue Qian meant by be careful. He really had to be careful. However, why did Xue Qian remind him? Elder Heaven Ancestor, what should I do? I think I'm going to die. Xiao Qin turned pale with fright. Why do I have such a dumb disciple like you? Elder Heaven Ancestor was a little speechless. What's the point of your heaven's stolen fortune battle art? You can't resist it, but you can still heal yourself. With the intensity of the attack, it's enough for you to endure it and continuously heal yourself. That works? Xiao Qin was stunned. If I can't die? Elder Heaven Ancestor snorted. Xiao Qin came to a realization. No wonder Elder Sky did not warn him earlier. It turned out that Elder Sky had the confidence to break it. Xiao Qin hurriedly circulated his mental cultivation method and gave up on resisting. Instead, he focused on treating his injuries. Anyway, he wouldn't die from his injuries for a while. He could endure it here and there so he could be busy. Thus, Xiao Qin continued to suffer the backlash, get injured, heal, suffer the backlash again, get injured again, heal again, and so on. Xiao Qin struggled with great difficulty as he suffered the backlash and injuries again and again. At the beginning, Xiao Qin was a little overwhelmed, but very quickly Xiao Qin liked this feeling. This was because Xiao Qin discovered that his strength was growing bit by bit as he continuously healed himself. Although it was very slow, he could still sense it. The foundation establishment stage was different from the qi refinement stage. Every little bit of improvement was very difficult. Back in the Tao Enlightenment Sand Valley, the pure heaven and earth spiritual qi only allowed him to improve a little. Even now, he still hadn't reached the peak of the first level of the foundation establishment stage. Chapter 641. He hadn't expected that the power from the backlash could help Xiao Qin break through. Now Xiao Qin hoped that these people would attack slower so that the array formation wouldn't be broken so easily. Time passed slowly as Xiao Qin continued to repair and improve. On the other side, Tagan Shanxiong realized that Xiao Qin seemed to be fine. He was secretly surprised. This Xiao Qin looked like a martial master level 1 demonic cultivator previously. Why was it that the abilities he displayed now were completely different? Although he couldn't sense Xiao Qian's specific strength because Xiao Qin hadn't made a move yet, whether it was the aura Xiao Qin was displaying or the time he had spent resisting the backlash, it proved that this guy was definitely a third-level martial master demonic cultivator. This discovery made Tagan Shanxiong's heart tremble. He was only a 5th-level martial master. He had thought that Xiao Qin wouldn't be able to survive this round of backlash. Once the array formation was opened, there would be nothing left for Xiao Qin. But now, it seemed that this guy was still very tenacious. This was because Tagan Shanxiong knew that there wouldn't be many extraterrestrial ink meteorites in the ruins. He was afraid that there would only be 2 or 3 pieces. They didn't even have enough for their own people, so why should they share it with Xiao Qin? Previously, he had tricked Xiao Qin into coming here. In this world, the easiest lies to deceive people were half-truths and half-lies. That was how he had done it. He had weaved a very convincing lie, but he had underestimated Xiao Qian's strength. However, at this moment he couldn't care less about Xiao Qin. He could only continue to attack the array gloomily. Perhaps he would find another opportunity later. If it really didn't work, he would hint to his teammates to join forces and kill Xiao Qin. In any case, he couldn't let him get the extraterrestrial ink meteorites. It would be fine if there were too many of them, but if there were too few, there definitely wouldn't be enough to share. He was absolutely unwilling to watch Xiao Qin take it away. Xiao Qin, on the other hand, didn't care. He kept healing and improving. He already couldn't remember how much time had passed. Under the powerful force, there was almost no place on his body that wasn't injured. Often, when one place was healed, another place would be seriously injured. He could only continue to be a firefighter and heal himself. However, he didn't find it troublesome at all. Every time he recovered, his strength would increase. Suddenly, he felt a hissing sound coming from within his body, and a moment later, this sound caused all the meridians in his body to tremble slightly. Yuan Qi began to circulate wildly in his body, and like a tidal wave, it gathered in his dantian. A hint of surprise flashed in Xiao Qian's eyes. This wasn't the first time he had such a feeling. He knew that he was about to break through again. Sure enough, the next moment after Xiao Qin healed the injuries on his body, his whole body shook and he also broke through. He became a cultivator at the peak of the first level of the foundation establishment stage, and he broke through without using any cultivation resources. This was a very rare situation. From the looks of it, the power of the backlash definitely contained something similar to spiritual energy. However, it was offensive in nature. Under the mental cultivation method's mnemonic chant, as his injuries healed, it fused with the primordial qi in his body, allowing him to break through. Xiao Qin's breakthrough did not attract too much attention. This was because he was a cultivator. His breakthrough was different from that of a martial cultivator or a demonic cultivator. Moreover, he was circulating the energy of the backlash so no one noticed anything at all. Tagan, Shanxiong, and the others were constantly attacking the array, and they were also paying attention to Xiao Qin's matter. Finally, with everyone's attacks, the array let out a loud bang, and on Xiao Qin's side, he also welcomed the most powerful attack since the beginning. It was too awesome. Xiao Qin felt that with this attack, he had suddenly consolidated his strength at the peak of the first level of the foundation establishment stage. This made his whole body tremble and he felt a little regretful. How could he break the array so quickly? If he continued to break it endlessly, would he eventually be pushed to the peak of the foundation establishment stage? Of course, it was just a thought and it shouldn't be possible. Xiao Qin pretended that he didn't know anything, stood up, wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and said, "This backlash is 2F** King strong, I almost died, especially the last attack. Fortunately, everyone was strong, or else I really wouldn't have been able to hold on. Haha, this is enough to prove that young hero Zhao's strength is superb, congratulations." Although Tagan and Shanxiong looked very happy, they were very regretful in their hearts. If they had known, they would have broken it a little longer. This guy actually seemed to be fine, what should they do? Yeah, I thought I couldn't hold on any longer. Captain Tagan, are you kidding me? Why do I feel that the backlash is so strong? Xiao Qin nodded and said, "How can that be? I haven't experienced any backlash, but it is true that the backlash is very strong, but aren't you also fine?" Tagan Shanxiong said. "That's true, then let's quickly go in," Xiao Qin said. Tagan Shanxiong seemed a little impatient, but in his heart he was thinking about how to get rid of Xiao Qin. "Xiao Qin, you stay at the entrance." After Tagan Shanxiong finished speaking, he took the lead and stepped into the array. Xiao Qin followed closely behind and the other three teammates also followed. They didn't expect that after stepping into the array, they would suddenly see a completely different world in front of them. The dense forest before had turned into a dark corridor. After entering the array, they needed one person to stay outside. If there was a problem, they wouldn't be completely annihilated. Moreover, if someone came from outside, they could also notify them. This is the Paoli clan's secret treasure house. Originally, the Paoli clan probably left in a hurry and didn't take some of the treasures here with them. That's why it's our turn. Tagan Shanxiong explained to everyone as they walked, "But we can't let our guard down now that we're in. This place could be filled with danger at any time." As soon as he finished speaking, he stopped in his tracks. "What's wrong, Captain Tagan?" Xiao Qin was also secretly on guard and asked in a calm and puzzled manner. "I feel that there is some danger ahead." Tagan Shanxiong said, then took out something that looked like a small ball from his backpack and threw it forward. Sure enough, when the ball rolled over, a large rock fell from the sky without any warning and smashed into the road ahead. Everyone was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. If not for Tagan Shanxiong's warning, it was likely that at least two people would have been hit, and that would be Tagan Shanxiong and Xiao Qin, who were walking at the front. Xiao Qin was also shocked. "That was close, Captain Tagan. How did you find out?" Speaking from experience. Tagan Shanxiong waved his hand and said with a solemn expression, "Look at the color of the ground in front. It's a little different. I'm afraid that not only can this rock fall, it can also rise." After saying that, Tagan Shanxiong walked forward. After taking 2 steps, the rock rose again without any warning and disappeared. "Will it fall again?" Xiao Qin asked. "Probably not." Tagan Shanxiong said, "It should only fall once in a period of time. Everyone just hurry up and pass through." No one dared to be negligent and quickly followed behind Tagan Shanxiong. Along the way they encountered many similar traps, but they were easily dispelled by Tagan Shanxiong. It seemed that he was indeed adept at exploring ruins. Although this person was using Xiao Qin as cannon fodder, Xiao Qin had to admit that if he had not followed Tagan Shanxiong, he would not have been able to enter even if he had broken the array formation. Phew. Tagan Shanxiong led everyone to the end of the corridor and finally arrived in front of a door. He let out a long sigh and said, "Okay, there's nothing else. We have arrived at our destination." Hearing this, everyone including Xiao Chen relaxed. Although it was not difficult along the way and Tagan Shanxiong had led the team to resolve the traps, if Tagan Shanxiong had overlooked something, wouldn't everyone have suffered? Now that they had arrived safely, they were naturally very happy. However, Xue Qian said, "Captain Tagan, why don't you open the door?" This was Xue Qian's third sentence along the way. The first sentence was a self-introduction, the second to remind Xiao Chen to be careful, and this was the third sentence. Xue Qian's sudden words made Xiao Chen's eyelids twitch again. Xue Qian did not seem to want him to die. She had warned him once before, so why did she say it again? This door is the same as before. It can only be opened by a demonic cultivator. Let's all step back and give young hero Xiao a chance to perform. Tagan Shanxiong said. F***ck your chance to perform. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. It was probably a chance to die, right? Xiao Chen did not believe that there was a need for demonic cultivators here. Normally, Xiao Chen should have been dead when the formation was being broken. How could he have survived until now to open the door? At that time, Tagan Shanxiong obviously wanted to use him as cannon fodder. If he had died at that time, who could Tagan Shanxiong find now? Do you need me again? Xiao Chen still had to rely on Tagan Shanxiong, so it was not good to fall out with him for the time being. Who knew if there would be traps inside after the door was open, so Xiao Chen could only pretend that he did not know and ask. Xue Qian glanced at Xiao Chen but did not speak. Tagan Shanxiong said, "It's very simple. Just use your full strength to break open the door." "Oh, then you guys can dodge. I'm going to use a big move. Just now, I was resisting the formation's backlash, so I don't have much strength now. I have to use a big move in one go," Xiao Chen said. "Okay, everyone step back." Tagan Shanxiong sneered in his heart. "We won't go forward even if you ask us to. Whoever rushes in first will die." Originally, he thought that you would die while breaking the formation. At this time, he planned to sacrifice one of his teammates. However, since Xiao Chen was still alive, it would naturally be Xiao Chen. The teammate he was referring to was Xue Qian. Although Xue Qian had teamed up with them a few times, she was cold and arrogant. She rarely spoke, so her relationship with Tagan Shanxiong and the others was not very good. Usually in the group she rarely chatted. Usually when there was nothing to do she would just lurk. Most importantly, he saw Xue Qian's voluptuous figure. Although he did not know her appearance, he hinted several times that he wanted her to be his woman. However, Xue Qian did not agree. In his anger, Tagan Shanxiong treated Xue Qian as cannon fodder. Chapter 642. Anyway, there weren't enough extraterrestrial ink meteorites to be distributed. Killing one would reduce the disputes. "And Xiaoma, it's time to perform." Xiao Chen entered the divine sense space and said to Xiaoma, "Okay, master, what do you want me to do?" And Xiaoma was eager to try. "In a while I will pretend to activate a big move. Then you will go out and help me break the door open. Then go in and see if there is any problem." Xiao Chen ordered him. "Oh, no problem." And Xiaoma was a demon. As long as it wasn't some kind of spell, the mechanisms that fell from the big stones were useless to him. They couldn't cause any damage at all. Xiao Chen danced there and finally activated a big move. In fact, there was only momentum and no attack. And Xiaoma took advantage of the momentum and slammed into the door at the end of the corridor. Boom! With a loud noise, and Xiaoma directly smashed the door open and rushed in. Then he heard a series of ka-ka sounds coming from inside the house. A few large stones also fell at the door. Everyone only saw Xiao Chen activate an unknown martial arts skill. Then a black shadow flew out from Xiao Chen's palms. They thought it was demonic energy, but no one knew that it was a demon. Of course, even if they saw it clearly, they wouldn't know what a demon was. It was difficult to understand if one wasn't a cultivator. Xiao Chen sneered in his heart. As expected, there was danger. If he wasn't a cultivator, if he really activated a martial arts skill with the ability of a martial artist, it would be impossible for him to attack from such a long distance. He would probably have to be in front of him. In that case, he would probably be in danger now. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen also pretended that he didn't see the problem. It wasn't good for him to fall out with Tagan Shanxiong. He just kept in Xiaoma and said, "Okay, I've opened the door. What should I do next?" Young hero Xiao is indeed powerful. This martial arts skill is really shocking. It can be activated from such a long distance and the attack power is so high. This is the first time I've heard of it. Tagan Shanxiong's expression was a little unnatural. He didn't expect that Xiaoqin wouldn't be killed. I'm alright. Xiaoqin chuckled. I still have some confidence in my own martial skills. Now that I can contribute some strength to our team, I am also very happy. Otherwise, if we get a share of the Outer Star Ink meteorites for nothing, I would be too embarrassed to take it. Originally, I didn't want to take it. I just wanted some spirit stones. After all, I only contributed a little when I broke the formation. Afterwards, I followed Captain Tagan to gain experience points. But now, since this door was opened by me, it seems that my contribution is quite big. When the time comes, I can take it with a clear conscience. F***ck. Tagan Shanxiong cursed in his heart. So this was what this guy was thinking. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have let him break the door. He could have used other methods to open the door. He had wanted to trick him to death, but since he was too embarrassed to use the Outer Star Ink meteor, why would he want to trick him to death? It was really a case of going for wool and coming home shorn. Now Xiaoqin was not tricked to death. Instead, he asked for his reward with a peace of mind. However, on the surface, it was not good for him to say anything. He could only say, "That's what I should do." Now he only hoped that there would be 6 Outer Star Ink meteors. Everyone would get 1 each. That would be the best. If there were less, then he could only join forces with his teammates to kill Xiaoqin. In fact, this was also the move that Tagan Shanxiong was most unwilling to make. Through observation along the way, he found that Xiaoqin was at least a 4th-layer demon master. The big move just now proved this point. Even if the 5 of them worked together to kill him, it would take some effort. They might even get injured. It was a mistake. Tagan Shanxiong took the lead and walked into the room. At the door of the room there were some traces. Obviously, it had been attacked by a mechanism just now. However, it had now disappeared and there was no other danger. The room was not big. There was only a small box in the room. Aside from that, there was nothing else. Tagan Shanxiong took a step forward and opened the box. When he saw what was inside, he revealed a look of pleasant surprise. However, there was also a trace of regret. Inside the box were the Outer Star Ink meteors. Furthermore, there were 3 of them, 1 large and 2 small. This discovery made him somewhat depressed. It looked like there was not enough to go around. Perhaps he could only kill Xiaoqin. How is it, Captain Tagan? Are the things inside the box Outer Star Ink meteors? Xiaoqin asked impatiently. Actually, he was also testing the waters. That's right, it is the Outer Star Ink meteors. Tagan Shanxiong nodded without batting an eyelid. Then he let the other teammates come forward to take a look. Just as everyone was concentrating on looking, Tagan Shanxiong had already retreated to the side. He suddenly shouted, "The number of Outer Star Ink meteors is relatively small. Teammates, pay attention. Let's get rid of Xiao Chang first." The reason why he secretly hid and shouted was that he was afraid that Xiaoqin would suddenly attack him. However, now that Xiaoqin attacked his other teammates, it did not matter. These 3 Outer Star Ink meteors were not enough even for the 5 of them. The large one was divided into 2 and the small one was only 4. If Xiaoqin killed one of his teammates for him, that would be perfect. It would also arouse the hatred of the other teammates. They would go all out and cooperate with him to kill Xiaoqin. Although Tagan Shanxiong had given the order, his 4 teammates were also stunned. After all, these people had been adventuring together in the past, but they had never worked together to kill someone. They had listened to Tagan Shanxiong, but they were caught off guard and could not react in time to kill someone. Sure enough, he had revealed his fox tail. Xiaoqin laughed coldly in his heart. However, he did not make a move. Instead, he shouted, "There are only 3 Outer Star Ink meteors. Some of you will definitely not be able to obtain them. Who is willing to fight alongside me and kill the others?" Tagan Shanxiong's expression changed and he shouted, "Don't listen to him. Let's attack together. When the time comes, I can give it to you all." Tagan Shanxiong did not expect Xiaoqin to be so cunning. He actually knew how to make use of the number of Outer Star Ink meteors. Therefore, he immediately responded and gave everyone some benefits. In his opinion, he would kill Xiaoqin first. At worst, he would kill Xueqian. That way he would have more. "I'm with you." Xueqian pulled out a long saber from behind her back and held it in her hand. She stood together with Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin was slightly taken aback. He did not expect it to be Xueqian. He had merely shouted in a probing manner. At that time, even if there was no one to help, he was confident that he would be able to escape with the cooperation of the true Samadhi fire and the great demon and Xiaomo. However, he was afraid that he would miss the opportunity to obtain the Outer Star Ink meteors. "Xueqian UB*TC. Tagan Shanxiong was furious. He did not expect that the first person to rebel would be Xue Qian, a woman who did not speak much. There are at most 4 outer star ink meteors. I'm afraid the person who will not be able to get them in the end will be me, right? Xue Qian looked coldly at Tagan Shanxiong and said, I know that you have long disliked me. You are very good. Tagan Shanxiong was furious, but he still said, Baldy, Skinny, what about you? Are you with me? Baldy and Skinny nodded. Since Xue Qian had sided with Xiao Qin, a fierce battle was inevitable. However, they were not afraid. Xue Qian was the weakest among them. She only had the strength of a first-stage martial master, while they were third-stage martial masters. Ah, very good. I will deal with Xiao Chong. The two of you deal with Xue Qian. However, don't kill her. Cripple her. I want to let this woman have a good time. In a while, the 3 of us will take turns. Tagan Shanxiong's mouth flashed with a lewd smile. This kid Xiao Chong's martial arts are long-range attacks. He is definitely not good at close combat. You don't have to be afraid of him. I will deal with him. No problem. Baldy's eyes flashed with a lewd look. It was obvious that he had coveted Xue Qian for a long time. Now that there was a chance, how could he let it go? He immediately took the lead and grabbed at Xue Qian's chest with a lewd look. Xiao Qin frowned. This person was really shameless. However, Xiao Qin was still very grateful that Xue Qian had stood up for him. Naturally, he would not let her suffer a loss. He threw a fireball at Baldy's face. Phew! Baldy was instantly set on fire. He immediately became a flaming man as he cried out in pain. This time Xiao Qin did not hold back. His strength had increased, so the strength of the true Samadhi fire had naturally increased. Before going to Dao Comprehension Sand Valley, Xiao Qin definitely did not have the confidence to burn Baldy to death. But now, Baldy only struggled and howled a few times before he stopped breathing. He fell to the ground and turned into a charred mass. Gradually, he turned into a wisp of green smoke and grayish-white ashes. What? Tagan Shanxiong was stunned. He did not expect Xiao Qin to be so powerful. He had directly attacked with a punch. He was afraid that if Xiao Qin attacked again and killed Skinny Man, he would be finished. He had to get rid of Xiao Qin as soon as possible. Xiao Qin had just activated the true Samadhi fire, so he did not have enough Yuan Qi in his body. He could only use the dark flame palm to deal with it. The dark flame palm struck out. However, although Xiao Qin was at the foundation establishment stage, he was only at the peak of the first stage of the foundation establishment stage. He was not on the same level as Tagan Shanxiong, who was at the 4th stage of the martial master stage. It might not be a problem for Xiao Qin to fight a 3rd stage martial master. However, it was impossible for him to fight a 4th stage martial master. The two of them exchanged blows and retreated a few steps at the same time. However, Xiao Qin was clearly in a more sorry state. He vomited 2 mouthfuls of blood. As for Tagan Shanxiong, other than taking a few steps back to dissipate the force of Xiao Qian's palm, he was not injured. Ah! At the same time, Xue Qian's exclamation came from the other side. Xiao Qin was slightly stunned. This exclamation was very familiar. He felt as though he had heard it somewhere. However, when he turned his head, he saw Xue Qian being kicked away by Skinny Man. Xue Qian was only at the 1st stage of the martial master stage while Skinny Man was at the 3rd stage. The difference between the two was too great. Xue Qian retreated repeatedly and was not Skinny Man's match. Xiao Qin was somewhat anxious. The Tagan Shanxiong in front of him was somewhat troublesome. As he healed himself, he ordered in Little Demon, "Go help Xue Qian kill Skinny Man." Chapter 643. He was not afraid of exposing his trump card. Anyway, this Xue Qian should be on his side. The two of them could fight together, so Xiao Qin was not afraid that she would know something. Alright. And Xiaomo rushed out with a whoosh, and went straight to the thin man. What the hell? What the hell? The thin man suddenly saw a black shadow rushing towards him. It was floating in the air and it was still in human form. He was suddenly shocked. Oh my god, there's a ghost here. Captain Tagan, is this the ghost of the Bubbly clan? And Xiaoma's current strength was only at the 8th level of the Qi refinement stage. Even if he was a ghost talisman demon, he could only be on par with a master at the 1st level of the martial master. However, the key was that his current form was so scary that the thin man almost peed his pants. You broke into the forbidden area of the Bubbly clan. Ah. And Xiaoma smiled strangely and continued to chase the thin man. Oh my god, Captain Tagan, run, there's a ghost. The thin man was a little overwhelmed and retreated. Xue Qian also seized the opportunity and slashed at the thin man with her long saber. Although she could not kill the thin man with the help of Xiaoma, she turned the tables and gained the upper hand. Don't be afraid. You're not afraid of humans, so why would you be afraid of ghosts? Tagan Shanxiong was bold. He sneered and said, you can kill him too. After that, he continued to punch at Xiao Chen and shouted, dazzling star fist. Xiao Chen did not exchange blows with him this time. Instead, he retreated and began to defend. Xiao Chen had suffered a great loss in the previous exchange, so he simply changed his mind. He only defended and recovered his physical strength. He was ready to activate the fireball skill again. As long as he could endure until his physical strength and vitality were replenished, he could kill Tagan Shanxiong in front of him. In order to kill the bald man with one move, Xiao Chen used all his strength. At this time his vitality was weak. Haha. Seeing Xiao Chen retreating, Tagan Shanxiong was overjoyed. He thought that he had figured out Xiao Chen's method. As long as he fought with Xiao Chen in close combat, Xiao Chen would not be able to activate that super powerful move. In his opinion, Xiao Chen's move could only be activated from a distance. It had no effect at close combat. In his opinion, Xiao Chen's move could only be activated from a distance. It had no effect at close combat. On the other side, although an little demon had joined in, the skinny man regained his confidence because of Tagan Shanxiong's encouragement. He could also see that this ghost only had the strength of a first-stage martial master. Why should he be afraid? He was an expert of the third-stage martial master after all. Therefore, although he couldn't say that he would win directly, he was much more confident than before. On the other hand, and Little Demon and Xue Qian didn't have it easy either. At most, they wouldn't be at a disadvantage if they worked together, but it would be difficult for them to defeat the thin man. Although Xue Qian was puzzled as to where the ghost had come from and why it was helping her fight the thin man, she did not ask any questions. She did not have the time to ask. Haha kid, aren't you awesome? Do you want to kill me? Very well, I'll kill you first. Tagan Shanxiong sneered, if you know what's good for you and don't want the things, I can let you live. I didn't expect you to be so greedy. When Xiao Chen heard Tagan Shanxiong's words, he was filled with disdain. This person must be crazy. He asked for his help, but he didn't give him any benefits. All the good things were taken away by him. What was he thinking? Xue Qian, if you surrender now and agree to be my lover, let's deal with Xiao Chang and the ghost together. How about it? Tagan Shanxiong could tell that the thin man was unable to deal with Xue Qian and the ghost alone. Therefore he tried to tempt him. As he spoke, his hands did not stay idle as he continued to attack Xiao Chen. Don't even think about it. Xue Qian snorted coldly, don't think I'm stupid. You don't know what's good for you? When I get rid of this brat, it'll be your turn. Tagan Shanxiong's voice became stern as he started to attack fiercely. He quickly attacked Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not respond and only retreated. Brat, let's see how long you're going to retreat. You've already circled around this house a few times, haven't you? Tagan Shanxiong said sarcastically. Oh, I'm preparing a big move to kill you. Xiao Chen said. Ah, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Why don't you fight? How about I let you fight? Tagan Shanxiong did not care at all as he continued to attack Xiao Chen. However, I'm going to kill you first. Alright, as you wish. Xiao Chen threw out a Samadhi True Fire fireball, which smashed onto Tagan Shanxiong's body. Tagan Shanxiong's expression changed and he knew that it was not good. However, because he was too close to Xiao Chen, it was already too late when he realized it. He did not even have the chance to dodge and was directly hit. Ouch! Tagan Shanxiong wailed as his entire body began to burn. He fell to the ground in pain and rolled around. Xiao Chen did not care about him. This person was a fourth-stage martial master, but there was no problem. At most he would die a little later. After being hit by the Samadhi True Fire, even a fourth-stage martial master would not be able to. Thus, Xiao Chen turned to reinforce Xue Qian and Xiaoma. At this time, the skinny man also realized that something was wrong. He looked at Tagan Shanxiong, who was screaming on the ground but showed no signs of extinguishing the fire. He knew that the situation was hopeless and that he would only be courting death if he continued to struggle. No more fighting, I surrender. The skinny man shouted. Too late. Xiao Qin naturally could not reveal his trump card to such a traitor. Xue Qian and he had a common interest. Who would believe that this skinny man would betray them at the last minute? Xiao Qin sent a dark flame palm over. At this time, and Xiaomo and Xue Qian also attacked. Boom! The skinny man was sent flying by Xiao Qin. In the air he was stopped by Xiaomo and knocked to the ground. Before he could get up, the Qin Shui saber fell and the skinny man's head fell to the ground. And Xiaomo returned to Xiao Qian's divine sense space without batting an eyelid. Xiao Qin praised this demon for being sensible. Outside, Xiao Qin could not communicate with him through telepathy. He could only communicate through telepathy. Xiao Qian's level was still low. Even his ghost talisman demon could not transmit telepathy through the air. If he asked Xiaomo to come back, then Xue Qian would definitely find out that this ghost was caused by him. Although Xiao Qin felt that Xue Qian would not spread it around because her personality was very cold, it was better to be careful. Now that Xiaomo had returned by himself, Xiao Qin could completely deny that he had anything to do with Xiaomo. Phew! Xue Qian squatted on the ground. She was panting heavily. Obviously, she was very tired from dealing with this fierce battle. "It's okay." Xiao Qin looked at Xue Qian and said, "Thank you for standing on my side just now." "No need. He was going to kill me sooner or later. I was alone but I didn't have a chance to resist. I wanted to find some good things together so I compromised." Xue Qian shook her head. If it were not for Xiao Qin, she would definitely be the one who would not get the extraterrestrial ink meteorite today. Even if she could not get it, she would just accept it and not complain. This was because she knew that Tagan Shanxiong had thoughts about her. She did not comply and attracted his killing intent. Therefore, if she wanted to follow them to get some good things, she could only do it when there was enough. If there was not enough, she would take the initiative to give up. "So that's how it is." Xiao Qin nodded. "Can you walk out of here? They are all dead. Let's go back?" "Yes." Xue Qian nodded. "That's good. Let's split this extraterrestrial ink meteorite equally. You get a big one and I get 2 small ones." Xiao Qin did not know whether this thing was useful to him or not. He was a cultivator and Xia Jili was a martial cultivator. This thing was useful to martial cultivators and demonic cultivators, but it might not be useful to cultivators. Therefore Xiao Qin kept a small one as a backup. "No, just now you were fighting the enemy. I was just supporting you. I just want a small one." Xue Qian shook her head. She decisively took out a small extraterrestrial ink meteorite from the box and put it in her arms. "Okay." Xiao Qin did not expect Xue Qian to be so obedient. He also put away the remaining 2 extraterrestrial ink meteorites. "This thing is useful to you. In the cultivation world we call it star ink meteorite. It is a good thing to help a foundation establishment cultivator break through to the golden core stage." Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded in Xiao Qian's mind. "This can help you reach the perfect golden core stage. It has the same effect as the so-called perfect breakthrough to the martial general stage." "It really is useful?" Xiao Qin was stunned. He thought to himself, is he not going to give it to Xia Jili and keep it for himself? "It's useless for you to have so many. One is enough." Elder Heaven Ancestor seemed to know what Xiao Qin was thinking and said, "If that's the case, then I'll give one to Xia Jili. This old thing has been taking good care of me." Xiao Qin thought, "Let's rest for a while. I'll take you out later." Xue Qian had overdrawn a lot of her physical strength. She was a little weak now. Therefore, she sat cross-legged in a corner of the room and began to silently recover her strength. However, martial cultivators were different from cultivators. Martial cultivators recovered their physical strength very slowly. At most, they could recover to the point where they could move. It was impossible for them to recover to their previous peak state. Xiao Qin nodded and casually searched the skinny man's corpse. The Baldi and Tagan mountain dragon had been burned by him. Even if they had anything good on them, they were gone. Only the skinny man was left. After searching, Xiao Qin secretly cursed the poor man. Other than a car key, there was nothing else. Xiao Qin casually put the car key in his pocket. Then he turned his head and picked up Xue Qian's long knife from the ground. He used the skinny man's clothes to wipe it clean. Bored, he played with it in his hand. Suddenly he was slightly stunned. "You are the female ninja Ling Qianxue?" Xue Qian, who was recovering her physical strength, trembled slightly. She opened her eyes and looked at Xiao Qin. "What female ninja Ling Qianxue? What are you talking about?" "Nothing." By now, Xiao Qin could basically confirm that this person should be the Ling Qianxue ninja that he met in Lan City. Although he had not seen her appearance, he could judge from her figure and temperament that this person should be Ling Qianxue. However, he did not know why she did not admit it. Could it be because they were once enemies but now that they had joined forces, it was difficult for her to face them? Oh. Shui Qian did not explain further. She closed her eyes and recovered her physical strength. Chapter 644. After about an hour, Shui Qian had almost recovered. She stood up and said, "Okay, we can go now." Since Shui Qian refused to admit it, Xiao Qin did not probe further. The two of them walked out of the room, one in front of the other, and returned to the corridor from before. After taking 2 steps, Shui Qian suddenly asked, "By the way, was that ghost one of your men?" "Why, are you afraid?" Xiao Qin asked. "How is that possible?" Shui Qian snorted. She was busy recovering her strength and did not pay attention to it. But now that she thought about it, it was indeed a little creepy. Where did that ghost come from? "Tell me if you are Ling Qianxue, and I will tell you where that ghost came from," Xiao Qin said. "Then forget it." Shui Qian did not ask any more. Xiao Qin was slightly stunned. This female ninja was quite cute. Her words had completely exposed her identity. If she had chosen to answer, she could have denied it. But saying, "forget it," was equivalent to admitting her identity. She was really inexperienced. "There's someone here." After a few steps, Xiao Qin suddenly said and stopped Shui Qian. "Wait. There's someone here? Where?" Shui Qian was stunned. She was already afraid of that ghost, and now Xiao Qin suddenly said that there was someone here. But where was the person? Why did she not see him? "Don't scare me." However, after Shui Qian said that, she seemed to vaguely hear footsteps coming from far away. But since she could hear it in this corridor, it should be someone walking in this direction. Could it be the small success guard outside? Xiao Qin said. "It shouldn't be. He always guards outside. He is a trusted follower of Tagan Shanxiong, so every time there is something good, Tagan Shanxiong will leave him a portion. And most importantly, oh no, I'm afraid that Tagan Shanxiong sent him a distress signal just now. Did he dare to come after receiving it?" Shui Qian said. "Oh." To be honest, Xiao Qin did not think much of this initial martial master. To him, this person was only a 3rd-level martial master and was no match for him. However, he still dared to come here even though Tagan Shanxiong was in danger. He really had guts. Sure enough, the two of them didn't have to wait for long before they saw Xiao Qin running over. However, when he saw Xiao Qin and Shui Qian, he was stunned and stopped in his tracks. "You guys are all right? Where's Captain Tagan?" "He's inside dead," Xiao Qin said calmly. Dead? Xiao Qin was stunned and looked at Xiao Qin in surprise. How did he die?" "You wanted to kill me but I killed you instead." Xiao Qin said, "If you want to avenge him, you can do it. If you don't want it, you can go in and collect his corpse." "You killed him?" Xiao Qin was in disbelief. "What about the others?" "Only Shui Qian spoke up for me. The others helped him kill me, so I killed them too." Although Xiao Qin said so, he felt a little strange when he saw Xiao Cheng's attitude. Didn't they say that Xiao Cheng had a good relationship with Tagan Shanxiong? However, Xiao Qin didn't see it. At least from his current expression, he didn't seem sad. Instead, he seemed to be gloating. "Shui Qian, is this true?" Xiao Qing looked at Shui Qian. "Yes." Shui Qian didn't say much and only said one word. "That's great." Xiao Qing suddenly became a little excited. He suddenly bowed deeply to Xiao Qian and said, "Thank you, young hero Xiao, for helping me take revenge." "Revenge? What do you mean?" Xiao Qin looked at Xiao Qing strangely. "Actually, I have an irreconcilable feud with Tagan Shanxiong. I've always wanted to kill him. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough and I don't have the ability to do so." Xiao Qing sighed and said, "Now that young hero Xiao has helped me fulfill my wish, I can't thank you enough." Xiao Qin frowned slightly. Even if this person was afraid that he would kill him, there was no need to say that. Or, was what he said true? Thinking of this, Xiao Qin said, "Are you making up a story? Don't worry, I won't kill you even if you don't join forces with him. If you want to go in and collect the corpse, I won't stop you. You are Tagan Shanxiong's confidant. Shui Qian has already told me that." No. Xiao Qing waved his hands. "I'm not." "Alright, Shui Qian, I'm talking about someone. You must know her. Do you know Yalan?" "Yalan?" Shui Qian was slightly stunned when she heard the name. "How do you know her?" "This is a former teammate of our team. However, there was an accident and he was injured and left." "Accident?" T, that's what Tagan Shanxiong said, right? Xiao Cheng's expression became somewhat sinister. "It was Yalan who discovered a spirit jade mine." "That was spirit jade." She wanted to share this news with her teammates, but she did not expect that after Tagan Shanxiong found out, he wanted to keep it for himself. Hence, he created an accident to silence her. Fortunately, she was lucky and survived. However, she lost all her strength and became no different from an ordinary person. She could only pass her days in bed. What? Xue Qian was shocked when she heard this. However, when she thought of Tagan Shanxiong's actions today, what Xiao Qing said was not impossible. With Tagan Shanxiong's personality, it was very possible. My real name is Song Xian, not Xiao Qing. I snuck in and fawned over Tagan Shanxiong so that after gaining his trust, I could find a chance to kill him and avenge my girlfriend. Xiao Qing was very emotional. I didn't expect the heavens to open their eyes. Ha, young hero Xiao, if my guess is correct, there must be treasures in there. However, there were not enough treasures, so Tagan Shanxiong wanted to kill you, right? In the end, he didn't expect that he would be killed instead. This is so cool. Xiao Chen looked at the somewhat crazy Song Xian and didn't know what to say. However, if what Song Xian said was true, then it was understandable. The enemy's strength was higher than his own. He was clearly in front of him, but he couldn't take revenge. This kind of feeling was really not good. Oh, if you don't believe me, here's a photo of me and Yalan. Xue Qian knows her. As he said this, Song Xian reached into his pocket and took out a small clip. He took out a photo from it and handed it to Xiao Chen. It was a photo of a man and a woman. Xue Qian took a look and nodded. Xiao Chen understood what she meant. This photo must be of Yalan. In that case, this man whose real name was Song Xian was probably telling the truth. Okay, I believe you. What about you? Xiao Chen asked. My goal is actually revenge. These years, I have been hanging out with Tagan Shanxiong and have gotten a lot of good things. Young hero Xiao, I can give them all to you. Song Xian said. Forget it, there's no need. Xiao Chen waved his hand. He was not interested in good things. He was only interested in one thing. Where is the spirit jade mine you mentioned? Has it been mined? Yalan found it, but after Yalan was injured, her memory became incomplete. She suffered a serious head injury, so she doesn't remember where the spirit jade mine is. The doctor said that this may be selective amnesia. Because she was injured because of something, she has become resistant to it. Song Xian said. Is that so? Xiao Chen was a little disappointed. He was thinking that if he found the spirit jade mine, he would be able to quickly cultivate again. He was a cultivator, and his cultivation was different from those martial cultivators and devil cultivators. He needed a lot of heaven and earth spiritual qi. Currently, there was no heaven and earth spiritual qi in the secular world, so what he needed were spirit stones and spirit jades, especially spirit jades. If he could find a spirit jade mine, it would be really amazing. But now, it seemed that Tagan Shanxiong was dead, and Yalan was injured and couldn't remember. Xiao Chen could only give up for the time being. Young hero Xiao, are you interested in the spirit jade mine? Then when I go back, I will find a way to ask for you. Song Xian asked. Although he thought that the spirit jade mine was good, it was only valuable. He could exchange it for a lot of points in the warrior guild. But since Yalan didn't want to think about it, he didn't ask. After all, he had been following Tagan Shanxiong all these years and had gotten a lot of cultivation resources. But since his benefactor Xiao Chen needed it, he had to ask no matter what. Thank you. Xiao Chen nodded. Then how do I contact you after I find it? Song Xian asked. If Xue Qing can find me, you should be able to contact her, right? Xiao Chen asked. Of course, if I have any news, I will inform Xue Qing. Song Xian said, Benefactor, then I won't say much. I will go in now and whip Tagan Shanxiong's corpse. That won't be possible, he has already been burnt to ashes. Xiao Chen shrugged and said, My martial skill is too strong, I didn't leave his corpse intact. That's even better. Song Xian was stunned for a moment, then immediately laughed and said, This saves me the trouble of burning his bones to ashes. I will go in and take his ashes back to make Yalan happy. Well, then we won't wait for you, we will go first. Xiao Chen said. Okay, goodbye benefactor. Song Xian quickly said. Xiao Chen and Xue Qin left first, while Song Xian happily ran into the depths of the long corridor. After he left, Xiao Chen asked, How much of what he said is true? I don't know, but what Yalan said is true. At first, we were very curious why Tagan Shanxiong told us that she was injured and quit, and then there was no more news about her. It turns out that there was such an inside story. Xue Qin shook her head and sighed, If you didn't kill him, I would have been in danger sooner or later. Since you know that I saved you, don't go against me next time. Xiao Chen said, That Yakushi Kufu is a bastard, don't listen to him. No, Master Yakushi is not, ah. Shueqin subconsciously refuted, but then realized that she said something wrong. She angrily looked at Xiao Chen and said, "You tricked me." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.